Final Shapes campaign was Destiny 2's last, because they're not making them anymore, and according to critics, best ever story. The only problem is, I didn't like it. Now that's a very toxic and minority position that I'm gonna spend the next 25,646 words defending. I'm going to be careful, meticulous, borderline schizophrenic, and needlessly thorough with my assessment. And at the end of this video, you will at least say, geez, he raised some good points, didn't he? Hi, I'm Jez, and this green screen rant may contain traces of gluten. We start Final Shape by crash landing our ship straight into a big pink room. Remember the triangle labia on the Traveler? Well, it's a door, and this space is the doorway. Mara tells us she's lost Ikora and Zavala, and that our Guardian's comm line is open but non-responsive. Our ghost is like, Mara, we're right here, babe. And she's like, oh, well, you're in the Traveler, and it's so effing big in there. But she just said we're non-responsive, and we're immediately having a conversation with her, so non-responsive, my effing beehole, Mara. Also, it's weird she doesn't clarify, like, I've been trying to reach you guys for hours. Don't have Mara say we're non-responsive like it's an issue, if it's clearly not an issue. It's such a Destiny move to over-explain logistical details that may as well be white noise. I'm gonna rant about this momentarily. Then she says that the purple doorway is a side effect of the witness's paracausal mutilations, which is pretentious speak for magical ouchies. More syllables doesn't make it better because many letter make writing confuse. So Bungie has this habit of dressing up basic mechanics in very elaborate language. For example, our ghost says, that's a sphere of concentrated darkness. It's being detained in a resonant shell. Destroy it. 15 words to say shoot ball. And that's just step 1. For step 2, ghost says, the darkness unraveled and it's projecting something, an overlay of possibilities. We have taken incoming, but I'm picking up something strange with them, a concentrated source of light. 29 words to say more enemy, get buff. Step 3 is just repeat step 1, but Ghost says, we're imbued with extra light now. Let's try activating that concentration of darkness again. 15 words for shoot ball. Then we get 12 words of confirmation dialogue explaining what happened. Now, I think that sometimes confirmation dialogue is quite helpful. Basically, it's the game saying, good job, buddy, you're done with this, move on now. But if you can replace that expository technical jargon with a success sound effect, a new waypoint objective, and an updated quest step, you don't also need the dialogue every time. If a game has a word vomit problem, which I strongly believe Destiny does, then less talky talk, make more fun have. So for the first mechanic of the expansion, which is literally shoot ball, get buff, shoot ball, they've used 71 words. And not 71 concise, well-chosen words, it's dry logistics, dressed up in fantasy technobabble. Not a big deal, Jez, I hear you saying. This is but a single example. You're dumb and annoying and ugly, and you've put on weight. Well, good point, you pissy little pissmeister. But when you multiply this same problem across almost every encounter of an entire expansion, you have chlamydia and it's terminal. This is also a systemic nationwide Destiny problem, and you know it. But Jez, why don't you just turn voice off? You have that option. That's just so scorched earth and heavy-handed. I actually do want to know what the F is going on in game, but it's so hard to endure the I'm saying all these words because no one gave me a character limit dialogue. I guess I'm just elitist and have a tiny cock. When you use 100 words to explain something that only needed 10 to 20, a violent rage rises up inside me. It makes me feel personally disrespected that I gave you my full attention and you squandered it with careless, bloated writing. I just value succinct and precise communication so much, he says on page 2 of a 38-page script. In a world plagued by fluff and filler and an infinite volume of content, when you are deliberately concise, I feel respected because you've acknowledged that attention is a scarce resource and you haven't taken mine for granted. Mark Twain once said, I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I tased my nipples until orgasm. No, it's I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one instead. What Mark knew is that being economical with writing takes more time and effort than being long-winded. If you disagree with this, you're annoying and probably talk too much. And only I care enough to tell you the hard truth. What I'm saying is I wouldn't have to mute the voice audio if characters weren't so rambly, and rashes are normal for adults to have. Okay, back to the mission 1 mechanic. Obviously, some stuff needs to be explained. That's what stories are. But like, shooting this ball ain't it. Not everything can be a monologue. I bet if I asked 100 Destiny players what was the story explanation for this ball mechanic, maybe one could articulate it. And he makes Destiny lore videos on YouTube. Then we get introduced to our first new enemy race in 6 years, the Dread. The last time we got this was Scorn from the Forsaken expansion in 2018. Look how they introduced them back then. Firstly, they attack Cayde in a thrilling, gut-wrenching cutscene right before his death. So immediately, we're pissed. Then in game, we find some meth trails, and our ghost is like, ooh, yeah, classic Fallen behavior, except it's not Fallen. How intriguing. Big reveal. The room is on fire. New enemies rush us. The music swells. More are leaping out of the vent and my bedroom closet IRL. Compare that to Final Shape's reveal. We're walking along and the Weavers are just there all of a sudden. And Ghost is like, IDK who this is. And that's it. Shut up, Jez. No one cares. Hi, it's me, Moneyboy. Are you sick of games that suck? Are you sick of devs that don't listen to gamer feedback? Are you sick of being sick of stuff that annoys you because you're sick of it? Well, Core Punk is the answer to all of that probably. This art style is so charming, it's in your kitchen right now, baking you a fresh batch of heart-shaped cookies. And they're gluten-free. The visuals combine steampunk, diesel punk, cyberpunk, and other punks that are yet to be invented. Core Punk is dripping with so much style, it may physically disrupt your space-time continuum. It's an isometric open-world MMORPG that also blends elements of MOBAs and ARPGs. What do all those letters mean, I hear you asking? I actually don't know, but it's one hell of a video game. See why one commenter said, "You had me at the loading screens to see you in game." I can't for the life of me work out what that means, but maybe you can, being so perceptive. Another commenter said, "Came to this game with abysmally low expectation, and I gotta say, it's very fun for what it is. The in-game store is entirely cosmetic. There's zero tolerance for pay-to-win mechanics here, which is so ethical my capitalist brain is very confused. The game is still in early access, but the devs are surprisingly open to feedback. They want you to love this game. For example, recently they added a bunch of campfires to rest at because people said, we want more campfires. So download the game right now using my link in description. There's also pre-order bundles if you want to go crazy. Sponsored by Artificial Core and One Leaf on the Ground. Forsaken did it better 6 years ago, and you know what? I only showed you the first interaction with the Scorn. For the rest of that mission, every new room seems custom made to show us how threatening the Scorn are. Let me show you. So we drop down that vent, then they're running in the walls next to us, so we hear them before we see them. Ghost is like, Fallen didn't just become this, somebody did this to them. That is concise dialogue. Not a single word is wasted, and I'm rock hard. Then a Ravager bursts through the ceiling because he wants to ravage my butthole, obviously. And more of them rush us. Then a few more burst through the pipes like, what's up, virgins? We're also here. As we exit that room, there's explosions in the distance, and all the prison cells along the path slowly open. The Navy SEALs are here, and I'm Osama bin Laden. Then up ahead, we see their smoke ability for the first time, and we're like, what the F? Are those Death Eaters from Harry Potter? They're not though. We reach a stuck door and are forced to watch this enemy chain smoke their way into the future. Be careful, it's a known carcinogen. We don't care though, and run after them because the future is now, bitch. And that's how we're introduced to the Raiders. We're not even close to being done. The next room has a bunch of them yeeting past right as we approach because it looks cool as hell, and soon we're forced into a tight vent. It's gotten dark. We're crouching through a narrow hallway, and as we do, something unknown goes scuttling past. Think Golem with a firework in his rectum. Uh-oh, but where'd it go? We drop down into a claustrophobic room and the screams start to rush. Now we're done. Can you see how it feels like the entire second half of that mission was tailor-made to introduce them in cool ways that played to their strengths? Back to the Final Shape and the Weavers just randomly being here. It turns out that the Dread, a race with 4 new enemy types, was completely cooked up for the 4-month delay. Yeah, the Final Shape expansion was delayed by 4 months. They weren't even supposed to be in this expansion, according to Paul Tassie's reporting. Bungie had already shown us the Subjugators, which are the Stasis and Strand big boys, with no indication that there would be any more enemies. Then they announced the Final Shape delay in November 2023, and 5 months later showed us the new Dread enemies. They didn't have anything else in terms of enemies for Final Shape, according to Bungie insiders. So there's a good chance they cooked up the rest of the Dread in just over 5 months. Bonkers insane if true, and I completely forgive them for the weak introduction. Game devs hate it when you jump on stuff. There's a mini boss encounter, and when it's over, Mara says, tell my brother the good guys will stay out here while you main characters are in there doing the main stuff. Basically, they needed to write a good excuse for half the campaign characters not to show up in the campaign. Then she has this emotional little moment.
Tell him that he knows.
Worst therapist ever. Mara was about to have an emotional breakthrough and maybe tell her brother she loves him for the first time ever. In the past, he wanted to bang her, so obviously she didn't feel safe to say, I love you, lest he get the wrong idea. He's come a long way since then. Incest bad, platonic good. Stepping on someone who's trying to be emotionally vulnerable is such a boomer move by Ghost. I'm surprised he didn't follow it up with, it is what it is, and then post a back in my day meme on Facebook. The witness tells us that we're clinging to our pain and failures and that we've lost already. A lot of confidence from someone who, at a glance, could be a vape commercial. Also, I have no idea what it's talking about. If you're gonna antagonize me, at least have the courtesy of being specific. I get easily confused. Mara's like, ignore that little incel and get in there. I'm still unclear on what she's actually doing. It seems like they're locked in a cosmic Jedi mind battle, but I'm not a big J.J. Abrams guy, so I couldn't tell you. Crossing the threshold, we go straight into an expensive and stunning cutscene. White feathers, spirit crow. The ghosts look like a plague of mosquitoes spreading space aids to the realm. Remember this astronaut from the first ever Destiny cutscene? He's back in 8K. Look at that fidelity. Is that semen? Christopher Nolan did that fire in Oppenheimer 1 year earlier. This is my beard when I trim it. You've seen Spider-Man, you know what this is. The GoPro in my toilet bowl filmed this. I'm surprised they went with it. All right, we're still in the threshold, just more in it, I guess. Ghost says we're inside the Traveler now. Finally, after all these years of whining and dining that curvy whore. We emerge onto this lost city vista and wow. 2 words, 1 word, cinema. Modern stuff that's been reclaimed by nature is like my weight loss being reclaimed by ice cream. Inevitable. If you make something slightly Garden of Eden, I'll lick it right off your nips. Oh, I'm sorry, I love Paradise too much. Wham. Also, regular stuff, but huge for no reason? Why is it so unreasonably sick? Do we just crave variety that much as humans? Even though the item in question is known to me, its scale is a pleasant twist. We've seen this spirit bird a few times now. Thankfully, they explain it soon. Ghost can't reach anyone on comms. We've gone completely Macaulay Culkin. He also says this place is beautiful but familiar. A developer wink that says we will be reusing, nay, remixing some stuff from the past. Hey, why pay full price when discount is available? We see the Traveler's huge vajayjay in the distance. No shame in that, everyone's got one. Mine is shaped like a chihuahua named Stacy. In the next room, we fight the Grimm for the first time. They're annoying little gun bats that will ruin your life by screeching and suppressing you. I love them, and they have my full support in the upcoming election. We're introduced to these little kiddie pools where light and dark are colliding. You know where else light and dark are colliding? A full moon at night. That's just a bit of science for you guys. We transcend for the first time, which buffs our something by something percentage. Sorry for getting technical. Ghost has sniffed the trail of a Vanguard emergency beacon. Who could it be? We're back to the Destiny 1 command center, but this time there's a psychedelic surge of asbestos. Luckily, that's our favorite thing, and we commune to get Prismatic for real. The line between light and dark is gone. I don't equip Prismatic because I don't super care about the abilities in this game. The gunplay is everything to me, so if the abilities supplement the guns, I'm all for it. But most of the time, these days, the abilities are the gun, especially Prismatic, so it's not really my vibe. Final boss arena, and there's a swirly whirly of broken glass, and the witness is peeping us like a peepy little peepster. Its face goes from small to big as I aim down sights, which is an insanely subtle detail that I only noticed watching back the footage. It disappears before I can even kill the boss, so my performance wasn't very entertaining, I guess. What is this, my effing YouTube channel? Speaking of the boss, it's our first subjugator. The main big boy added with the dread. We got 2 types. Strand guys called Harbingers, and Stasis guys called Omens. Not calling them Spidey and Icy was an unforgivable mistake. The Strand ones suspend you, and the Stasis ones suck your little ween. No, they're actually demolition experts who will blow you up like it's an episode of Mythbusters. I wiped in this room twice, because the first time I thought all the ads would despawn if I burst fired the boss, but they didn't. And the second time my game hard crashed to desktop, because I'm a bad person. After we kill the final boss, there's a cosmic shriek from somewhere far away, and the ghost also cries out in pain, saying the Traveler is hurting and that he, the ghost, can feel its pain. Then we get the Cayde Returns cutscene. There's a soft harmonica in the distance, and the vibes are immaculate. We slowly approach the music, and can I just say, a bunch of particles in the air really tickles my gooch. Let's normalize constant atmospheric particles in games. There's just something magical about leaves dropping or fireflies hovering. Tell me I'm wrong about this.
Oh, you gotta get better boots, Crow. I could hear you coming a mile away.
Everyone's favorite sci-fi movie, Sandy Hot Boys Part 1, did a footstep thing 3 years earlier. I guarantee you one of the devs saw that and was like, we should also do a footstep thing. And they did, and that's fine. I don't know why you guys are making such a big deal out of it. All art is derivative. I can't believe Dune Part 1 invented footsteps though. Isn't that kind of crazy? The harmonica throw is sick. Our Guardian says, Cayde, how long has it been? And he replies, a lifetime. That is some elegant writing. He continues, I finally have someone to talk to about Crow's stupid haircut. A fine joke, nothing crazy. And I remember thinking, wait, maybe they can still write some subtle, light-hearted comedy into this game.
I like Crow's haircut.
Oh, ruined it. Almost unquantifiable how much I hated that moment. Then we get an Inkblot 2D cutscene where Cade explains what it's like to die. This is so well written. It's sensitive and emotional. Tonally, it's lighthearted without feeling cheap or forced. If every cutscene was this good, Destiny would have some of the best storytelling in all of gaming. I just wanted to give credit where credit is credit. Cade explains that he was at peace and that he was reunited with his ghost Sundance in death. Like there were two cards shuffled back into a deck, whole again. That is such gentle, eloquent writing. It's the perfect balance of description and mystery. Tell me just enough so that I know what's going on, but keep me intrigued as well. Don't overdo it. A line like that hits me right in the balls, and I live for those moments in stories. You know, the sentence that just makes you go, wow. Then a giant hentai demon rips him straight out of heaven, and he wakes up in Costco. No Sundance, no powers. The guy who killed him was also in Costco, but they immediately reconcile because Cade is chill like that. Crow is like, guess what, dude? We're in the Traveler. And Cade's like, I know. Then he says the main villain is up in the Giga Tower, and what it's doing is called the Final Shape, the end of everything. But like, who told him this expansion's meta narrative? He may as well have said, also Final Shape plus annual pass available now on Steam for $1,000, rated a number out of 10 by IGN. He doesn't even explain how he knows where we are or what the witness is doing. He just states it as fact and moves on. A slightly weird ending to what was otherwise a perfect cutscene. Then we have a little first-person dialogue with Cade where he says, we need to go and find Crow ASAP. He teleports away and Ghost is like, you're not gonna believe this. That really is Cade. He snuck in a non-consensual Ancestry.com body scan, and it appears Cade is made of pure light. Just like me when I've had caffeine. Ghost says Cade might not be able to wield his light as a weapon anymore, but maybe he can share the Traveler's light like we do. This becomes monumentally important later. So far, step 1 of Final Shape has been to find Cade, and step 2 is find Crow. Let's keep an eye on these moving forward. The mission starts with an Assassin's Creed longboy to reach the next area. Unreasonably big falls are always a good time in video game. Cade tells us a story about the previous Hunter Vanguard named Andal, big gambler, real degenerate. They had a bet about what was in the Traveler. Cade said, there's nothing. So Andal said, then I'm betting on everything. Nathan Fillion's delivery of Cade's reaction is perfect.
Everything. Lucky guess.
We get directed by another spirit bird, and Crow's ghost Glint enters the story. This is exactly what he said. Wah, Crow left me behind to go into a cave. Somebody call the wambulance. He also says that if Crow dies, there's no one there to raise him, which is interesting because I could have sworn as long as a Guardian's ghost is alive, they can be rezzed. This never gets explained for the rest of the campaign, but what's amusing about this line of thinking is that when a ghost gets too far away and the Bluetooth disconnects, Guardians just perma-die. Like, oh no, I'm going through a tunnel, I've lost reception, and my Guardian's permanently dead. God damn it, that's the third Guardian this year. When I was fact-checking this video with Bife, a Destiny lore creator, he said Glint is kind of touching on the concept of darkness zones here. So you know how at certain difficulties, there's limited or no revives in-game, and they're called darkness zones. Bife says that although it's not explicitly explained in the lore, it could be that the darkness is smothering the light, so it's non-functional. No light, no res. And now that I've given you all that external information, what Glint's saying is kind of interesting. But as we all know, lore doesn't count when evaluating the story of a game. You can't not explain something in Captain America, and then when critics say this wasn't explained well, reply, oh, but once you read the comics, you'll love that part, it'll make total sense. Lore doesn't count. By the way, every time I asked Bife a dumb question like, why can't Glint just res Crow? He would send me paragraphs of explanation with relevant sources linked, and he would summarize the sources for me in case I didn't click them because I'm too lazy. That man is the ancient text. Then Ghost finally asks what we've all been thinking. What's up with Magic Flappy? Why are these birds assisting us? Cade says, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? And Glint responds, the Traveler is helping us. For a silent god, there's certainly a lot of wink wink, nudge nudge, go over there, trust me. But also, I'm impartial, and it's up to you. Up ahead, another bird is waiting right outside the cave. It's more of a doorway into an alternate world, a pocket dimension if you will, a sinister, more geographically horrific world. There's faces frozen in pain lining the walls, brightly colored geometry contrasted against the dark, naturally occurring environment. I don't even have the language to properly describe the aesthetic of Final Shape's terrain, but it is stunning. The world art team popped the F off in literally every space. A few seconds in, we get slammed by the witness as it possesses our ghost to speak to us. It's like, hey, Guardian, you're actually kind of an immortal slave. Would you like me to free you? Ghost immediately fights it off, but I'm thinking, let's at least hear him out on this, right? 1 second later, the witness just speaks directly to us and is like, yeah, I can talk straight to you. The possession was mostly for the love of the game. We stumble across a diorama of Crow and his sister Mara. The witness says that this is a facsimile, a testament to loyalty, an expression of longing. How many of you can honestly say you know what the definition of facsimile is without looking it up? Because I had to look it up and I have a decent vocab. I'll use a word like cohesive without even breaking a sweat. So facsimile just means a copy of something. Why is the witness flexing a PhD level intellect on me? If your whole plan is to convince me to your way of thinking, I have to understand your way of thinking. That is basic communication. The language of the witness is often dressed in philosophical nonsense, and as a dumb person, I don't like that. And so I can't for the life of me explain what's going on here. I can give you broad strokes, like the witness says inside the final shape it offered Crow a few things, that his sister would be proud of him, he would have friends who trust him, and that he would be king of a bunch of stuff. Crow declined because he trusts the traveler. Great, pretty straightforward. But in terms of actually explaining what the witness is saying half the time, no hablo inglés. $5 saki saki. Example 1, I already showed you the first half of the quote. It is but a facsimile. The witness continues, Crow, we see his heart held in talons. We hear it beat with his twin sisters. My best guess is that this is a replica of one of Crow's memories, where he's still serving Mara and longs for her approval. If so, it's even crazier that in mission 1, when Mara was about to say, tell my brother I love him, or tell him I'm proud, whatever it was, the ghost was like, nah, he already knows. That was the witness's best and most tempting offer to seduce Crow. I don't think he does know Mara loves him or is proud of him. Otherwise, why would the witness be offering that, Ghost? You emotionally inept little boomer. Back to the witness's absurd dialogue. In the next room, it says, quote, Crow believes he is resisting temptation, as do you. That material is immaterial. Let me stop you right there. I know what material is immaterial means generally, but in this specific case, gun to my head, I got nothing. On a scale from Ooga Booga Brain to degree in philosophy, there's gotta be a lot of middle ground, right? The witness goes on, only purpose can cure his heart, and he believes his capacity for pain is that purpose. It's why he subjects himself so completely to your traveler. This belief was taught, conditioned into you. Okay, let's work this out, Ooga Booga Brain. So Crow thinks his purpose is his capacity for pain, and that eventually his purpose, enduring pain, will cure his heart. And that's why he submits himself to the Traveler? And this belief was taught to him. By who? The Traveler? Did I miss enrollment in the Traveler's useless school of vague concepts? And the final line where the witness says, this belief was taught, conditioned into you? Into me, the Guardian? No, you were talking about Crow. I've got nothing to do with this. I'm afraid I have to diagnose you with terminal ligma and dementia and fecal incontinence. Just be more clear is what I'm saying. If you're gonna be a supervillain and you want me on your team, stop effing me around. Then we find Crow trying to talk to the veiled statue, but he can't quite make out what it's saying. His jealous little sicko ghost is like, wah, stop listening to it. Even though the statues are all good guys, trying desperately to help us. Crow is like, Glint, I told you to wait outside for your own protection. And Glint is like, you don't get to make those decisions for me. We're a team, Guardian and Ghost. That's how the Traveler made us. Crow immediately says, I'm sorry, and Glint says, don't ever leave me behind again, promise. Crow says, I promise. And I'm like, that was a bit fast for all that, maybe. In under 30 seconds, we had a huge conflict, then instant resolution. 0, 100, 0. It was all neatly contained in this one interaction. I think I needed a slower ramp up to really buy this. It feels a bit forced. Maybe more than one single interaction for the whole thing, IDK. It also seemed like the writers were standing there with a megaphone going, this is how you should feel about your ghost also. Doesn't this make you want to care about him more? I'm very sensitive to heavy-handed writing, so I might just be a total soy boy cuck incel degen on this one. Then our ghost says we should go see Cade, he's just outside. Crow asks if we at least got the drop on him this time. Ghost replies,
you and the Guardian both need better boots.
I know they can do better than this. Cade's dialogue has been pretty cringe-free so far, but for some reason when they try to write a joke for our ghost, it makes me want to kill myself. New rule, no more ghost jokes. We're 0 for 100 on those. Just have him say something normal in response, like the old man still got it. Why does it seem like Bungie wants our Ghost to be the funny, deadpan sidekick so badly? They just can't get away from it. And now it's time for the post-mission interlude. Basically, after every mission, we have to sit through some Fireteam dialogue, then some Ghost dialogue, then a radio transmission. And just like my performance in the bedroom, they vary wildly in quality. This one starts with Crow telling Cade what's up. He says that those pockets of darkness are physical manifestations of the witness's presence, a festering infection. That's 1,000 words to say evil cave, but I respect the marketing hustle. Then he says, we should find Ikora. Final shape checklist time. Step 1, find Cade, done. Step 2, find Crow, done. Step 3, find Ikora, in progress. I love this little back and forth between Cade and Crow, mostly because of Nathan Fillion's voice acting. Listen to the gentleness and the subtlety he brings to the performance in a tender moment.
Ikora would know what to do.
Don't worry, kid. We'll find her. Even if we have to blast our way through.
I don't think it's that simple.
Sometimes it can be. Let's just get our bearings again. Refocus.
I don't know how expensive it was to bring Nathan back, but it was worth every dollar. Now for the Ghost monologue. He's basically like, the witness, it's so evil. But then he says,
Michelle? Don't worry. It's not as bad as it looks. The witness barely left a crack.
the witness barely left a crack. Get it? Because his shell is cracked. I'd like to do crack until my family disowns me after hearing that. I'm pretty sure that's the placeholder line you put down while saying, let's remember to write a joke about his shell being cracked that's different to what we just said. I refuse to believe they couldn't come up with anything better than this. And it's Ghost again with the face melting cringe. But he goes on.
We take hits and we get back up again. Right, Guardian?
How am I supposed to form a relationship with a character who's written like a corporate motivational poster? I checked the credits of this expansion because I was like, how many people do we have working on the writing? Under the heading narrative, we have 87 from Bungie and 4 from High Moon Studios. So 91 people in total. And the line we unironically got was the witness barely left a crack. Was it actually good and I'm out of touch? 91 people is so many that I'm like, what if I'm wrong about this? All I can do is tell you how stuff made me feel. The concluding radio broadcast is Mara Sov saying, ooh, we're gonna get in there and help you guys at some point, but not yet. The plot needs to develop more. This is the anus of the Traveler, and this is Ikora's smoldering ship. I was gonna write a joke about that, but then I remembered crashed vehicles are cool actually. Me when I'm a tow truck driver. Wouldn't you know, she's not at the ship. It is burnt to a crisp though. Ikora came in with an Olympic level crash landing. I think the judges are gonna score high for this one. She left a message saying it's time to speak with the Traveler and that in this place, it might finally speak back. Because if not here, where? I'm sure that'll go well, but before we get there, we have to fight a big ogre. That's where we get this little exchange.
We've got it on the run. Crow, how did you manage to avoid it earlier?
Avoid it? Glint, how many times did you revive me? 5? 6?
12. But who's counting? Not bad. You can't be efficient, be persistent.
A lot to say here. Have they just copy-pasted our Ghost personality onto Glint? Why else would he, a serious character, try to sneak in a joke with the same timing, delivery, and cringe factor as our Ghost has done multiple times now? I like Crow's haircut, 12, but who's counting? Different voice actor, but same energy. Now, I like that Crow is starting to loosen up. I've made a career out of having a silly goose time. But don't have Glint try to be comic relief, especially when you've already got our Ghost trying to be a funny sidekick, even though it doesn't fit his character. And especially when we've got an actual funny character in Cade right there ready to go. Here's how I would have written it. Crow says, Glint, how many times did you have to revive me? He replies, Crow, I respect you too much to say. So we've cut Crow saying 5 or 6 because he was giving away too much information in the setup anyway, and less is always more in comedy writing. Glint saying, I respect you too much to say is a much more subtle joke attempt. If a character, especially a serious character, seems like they're trying really hard to be funny, it's much more likely to turn the audience off, I think. And the reason is, for a punchline to work, it has to surprise you in some way. It almost has to sneak past your brain's defenses, usually with a tiny subversion from what you were expecting. For example, if I say a woman had great sex with a guy in a hotel and afterwards she asks, wait, why didn't you tell me you had a wife and kids? And he goes, I'm shy. The punchline was the final 2 words because that's where the surprise was. It's even more powerful if the audience doesn't know where the punchline will be because that's an extra surprise on top of the punchline itself. The problem is Crow's dialogue was such an obvious setup that we were expecting a punchline from Glint. So you've already lost one element of surprise. Then because Crow says 5 or 6, the one thing we're expecting Glint to say is a high def number. So if the punchline is 12 but who's counting, there's 0 surprise. We saw that coming. Therefore, probably not funny. If you had to put a joke in there, just as an example, I might have Glint go, Crow, I respect you too much to say. Also, I lost count. There's at least an attempt at subversion in that joke. Still, I'd prefer nothing there at all. Glint is just not the guy for it. Cade's follow-up is good though. He says, hey, if you can't be efficient, be persistent. It's not explicitly a joke attempt, but it is lighthearted and playful and fun, which is right in line with his character. And it's something I've never heard said exactly like that before, so it feels fresh. What other YouTube channel can rant for this long about 15 seconds of dialogue? Trick question, there are no other YouTube channels. Also, my wife has banned me from watching movies with her. If someone says or does something that I don't think makes sense, I will rant about it until I've ruined our night. It's the cost of genius. Anyway, Cade gives us a bit of context for where his relationship with Ikora currently is.
Hey, when we find Ikora, if she's...
Ikora's strong. I'm sure she's fine.
Oh, that's good. Great. But not really what I'm worried about. I was gonna ask if you think she's still mad at me.
For what?
I made a promise, then I broke it. I died.
Another great delivery from Nath. I love the way he weaves subtle shades of emotion into a colorful tapestry. What the F? I did not expect to be dick riding this hard when I started this video. I'd just like to apologize to everyone I've let down with my behavior. What can I say? When art holds up under careful scrutiny, that really fires up my mitochondria. We find Ikora zenned out of her mind, trying to talk to the big ball. This is it. If we're ever gonna hear from the Traveler, it's right now. Ikora says she closed her eyes and opened her heart and mind. And what it said to her was nothing, but it was screaming. So I guess that's helpful. Then again, my newborn son can also scream. So the Traveler is at least as intelligent as an infant child. Then she says, geez, I wish Osiris was here. Maybe he'd have an actual theory. Anyway, here's an exact explanation of everything that's happening. Yep, we instantly cut to an Inkblot video where she lays out in great detail the witness's plan, motivation, and weakness at a meta-narrative level. Thanks, Ikora. For someone with no hypothesis, that was a lot of exposition. Basically, the witness is like, I'm gonna freeze everything forever. It'll be so still and silent. And as a parent, I completely understand that desire. It doesn't even want to kill anything. It's just a big pause on the universe. The final shape is a pause button. As an attorney, I can't point to a single law being broken here, except copyright infringement, because this is clearly Tangela from Pokemon. Someone at Nintendo is gonna write a crazy fanfic about the witness breeding with Tangela now, aren't they? That is so inappropriate, but shoot me an email so I can check it just in case. Ikora explains that the Vape Cloud is using both light and dark to destroy the universe. So maybe light is powerful enough to destroy the witness. That's right, it's about to get a taste of its own medicine, which is a profoundly simple plan, and there's no way this works. Now it's time for the post-mission interlude. We approach Ikora's camp and she immediately roasts us.
So, is there anyone else with you? Not Commander Zavala, I assume. This isn't quite up to his standards.
Bitch, I just rescued you from the Dread while you were doing ayahuasca in the middle of a combat zone. Don't lecture me about sloppy mission execution. But yes, Zavala had nothing to do with this and I am somewhat disorganized. Then we get a heartfelt, earnest back and forth between Cade and Ikora as they reunite for the first time in 6 years. It's so good, I have to show you some of it.
Hey, I did my best, all right? Given the circumstances, I think Big Blue will forgive me. Will you?
No, it's too much. It's just too much.
Ikora, come on, look at me.
I see you.
I know this is hard. It's tough for me too.
What do you know about tough? You were always running off to play renegade when we were supposed to be a team.
I know. I'm gonna make it up to you.
All right.
I know you like me.
Cade shows a maturity and a sensitivity here. Ikora dances between pain and hurt and rage and tenderness. This is Final Shape firing on all cylinders. The tone is just immaculate, nay, sublime. And also this section pissed me off and here's why. The super sleuths among you may have noticed my character furiously repositioning mid-dialogue because I wanted a good camera angle. Not for this video's footage, mind you, for my own enjoyment in the moment. An interaction this good deserves to be fully observed with no obstruction. Can I get some basic camera work or something? I'm trying to move my giant Barbie gun out of the way so it doesn't block anyone. I pull out my sword, but the FOV is too zoomed out and I still have a giant crosshair and radar and ability UI. In current year of modern gaming, how can I not stow my weapon? Didn't Skyrim have that at release? Let me just put the gun down. You know what I mean? Let me just go from here to here. Also, how is there no toggle HUD on or off keybind? Yes, it's in settings, but I don't have time to dig through multiple menu screens every time I come across a character in game. You know how in movies or TV shows, when 2 or more characters are interacting, you basically have 3 angles. A wide shot that shows everyone at once, and then medium or close-up shots to show them talking and reacting. Why do they do this? Because being able to see stuff properly is kind of the whole point. It's a visual medium. You know who else does this? Bungie themselves in every 3D cutscene. Imagine if an intense character drama scene was shot wide the entire time and you could barely see the actors' faces, or if there was only a camera on one of the faces and they never showed the other person. Outside of rare artsy exceptions where the director is doing something specific, the majority of character scenes are not shot like this. Why? Because no show visual is bad when visual. And yet this is the storytelling method Bungie has chosen for these superbly written and voiced character interactions. It's just so outdated and does such a disservice to everyone involved. The artists and the audience all suffer when the presentation is handcuffed like this. By the way, I had to oversimplify a bunch of film concepts to make that last point, and the cinephiles are screaming in the comments. But like, I'm right about everything I said. It would be so much better if those interactions had some basic camera work. Less than an actual cutscene's worth of camera work as well. Literally just show the face of the person who's talking and the reaction of the person listening. I've said too much about this, haven't I? If you've played a single other RPG game, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to provide any examples. Next up is the Ghost monologue, where he restates everything Ikora said in the cutscene. He doesn't try to make a single joke though, which is a breath of fresh air and makes him more tolerable. Then we get a spectacular radio conversation between Cayde and Ikora. Basically, she's like, wow, you actually are alive for real, and your body's made entirely of light. He just can't wield the light like he used to because his ghost Sundance isn't here. Then Ikora says this.
Can I ask you something deeply personal? What did you see when you died your final death?
Light. So bright, it burned me all the way up, but I didn't feel any heat. Not a lick. I didn't feel anything, actually. Not with my body, because I left that back there. These anatronauts might call it being one with the Traveler, but I call it home.
And Sundance?
She was shining there too. You want to know a secret? I miss it. Even more than I miss you.
That was such a surprising, vulnerable, and tender back and forth. What is it doing in a radio broadcast? This is S-tier material being delivered by a box. Everything I said earlier about no camera work being a disservice to the story also applies here, obviously. This is even worse though, because now we don't even have the characters on screen at all. Is this a podcast or a video game? What the F are we even doing here? By the way, for Cayde to say, I miss being dead even more than I missed you, sounds like a grand slam on Ikora, but it's actually a profoundly optimistic take on death that was quite refreshing and unexpected. How are these the same devs that came up with I Like Crow's Haircut and 12 But Who's Counting? That variance in quality is giving me diaper rash in real life. Final Shape checklist time. We found Cayde, we found Crow, we found Ikora, and now it's time to find Zavala. It's mission number 4, and we stumble across another veiled statue. Just like me when I have to cook my own food, all it does is sob uncontrollably. Adult life is unceasing pain, specifically when I want food, but all I have is ingredients. Cayde asks what Zavala said at his funeral, and Ikora's like, he wouldn't even come out of his office to attend. Cayde says he gets it, that grief can be a locked door. Then the witness pipes up secretly to us and goes, it wasn't grief, it was shame. The next combat encounter is a place I like to call Trip Mines in My Ass, The Room. It's the first encounter of the campaign I had to actually try to live, where my previous strategy of hold W no matter what failed. Thank God, we're only on mission 4 of 7 for the Legend campaign, better late than never. Keep in mind as well, I'm not on Prismatic, the new and best subclass. I'm not running a build, and I'm not even using PvE exotic armor. I'm using transversive steps, which help me sprint 6% faster and reloads my gun sometimes. These are a PvP exotic, but I'm a slave to moving single-digit percentage points faster. Zoom has got a zoom, and I'm 31 years old. Then for the next few rooms, the witness just trash talks Zavala relentlessly. First saying he's a bad leader and a fragile little baby. guilty. Second, that since serving the Traveler, all he's done is lose people with nothing to show for it. Third, when Zavala's adopted son Hakim was killed, the Traveler refused to bring him back. But the Witness isn't like the other girls and says it can bring him back and doesn't want anything in return, except to freeze the universe forever, but that barely registers on the anything in return scale. Then Zavala's ghost Taj flops his big dick out in front of the Witness and is like, he said no, bitch. This works actually. Just outside, we find a nice little cottage with a severe smoking problem. Sadly, the nicotine patches are not helping. This is where Zavala lived with his wife and son. We kill all the things, and Zavala says, give me a moment. I need to say goodbye. The following cutscene is some of the best voice acting in Destiny history, by Keith David specifically. Zavala's previous voice actor, the late Lance Reddick, was adored by the community, but with all due respect, and this is a nuclear hot take, I never really loved him for the role. His delivery was a little too stoic for me to get involved emotionally. Am I going to hell for saying that? Yes. Am I all aboard the Keith David train? Also yes.
I used to think I'd give anything to bring you back. But when the Witness offered me an eternity here with you, with our son, I know you understand why I refused. Safi, I'm sorry.
It was the middle of the day, 1 second before that cutscene started, but now it's nighttime. Don't think about it. So basically, Zavala feels guilty for not bringing his family back, and he needs forgiveness from his wife and from himself. Or does he? Because what if I told you we already did this story beat over 2 years ago in Season of the Haunted? Let me show you. This was Zavala dealing with a nightmare version of his wife, Sophia. I mean, what wife isn't a nightmare version? Am I right, gamers? For legal reasons, my wife is an exception to that rule. He tells her, I wish I could step back into that life, or that you could step into mine. She says, and what would I do with this broken man you've become? He says, you teach me to heal, and she likes that. So she calms down and turns herself into a Force ghost. Once again, he says, I'm sorry. She replies, you can only apologize for something that's your fault, and that she's proud of his courage. He likes that. Finally, she tells him to let go and rest. He says, yesterday I was too tired to rest, but today I'll find you in my dreams. After he leaves, Eris tells us that Zavala should be commended because it's not easy to forgive one's own regrets. I don't know about you, but he seems pretty peaceful about his family stuff. If that's not him finally forgiving himself, then I don't like to get freaky in the shower. Years later, Final Shape comes along and goes, what if we told that story again, but this time more expensive? I will rant more about this later, but for now, back to the cutscene. When Zavala touches his wife's hand, we flash to a dark statue whispering, help me. How mysterious. Ikora interrupts and says the Witness only shows us what it thinks we want. He replies, and what has the Traveler shown me? After a long pause, she sighs and has no response because that was a great point actually. This is the moment Zavala starts to execute his I no longer have faith in the Traveler for real this time arc that he began over 2 years ago. Another cutscene plays as Zavala steps outside to reunite with Cayde. In typical bro fashion, they hug it out. And that's it. Men are simple like that. Everyone swaps war stories for a few hours. Pro chokes up telling Cayde about Amanda. She was the one who went big splod. Ikora says she's done burying her friends. This is the moment she starts her no one else I like can die no matter what arc, which she will continue for the rest of the campaign. Cayde very gently and tactfully disagrees with Ikora's position though.
Life isn't about holding on forever. I mean, I was gone, mourned, at peace, and now I'm here, opening old wounds, filling them with salt. Eventually, you have to let go.
Oof, I gotta give it to them. This cutscene made me feel stuff. But also, did anyone else feel like it ended kind of weird? Cayde makes this really profound and impactful statement, and everyone silently walks away. No one says anything. When it showed us and Cayde right at the end, my Guardian's silence was screaming awkward and out of place to me. Bungie wants our Guardian to have zero personality, so we, the gamers, can project ourselves instead. But the Guardian speaks sometimes, so there is a personality there, and we can't totally totally project. We don't speak often enough though, so at times like these, when everyone is sitting around the campfire having fun, we are totally silent the entire time, which looks psychotic. IMO, we should not have even been in that cutscene. Now it's time for the post-mission interlude. So we got a ghost monologue, and you're not gonna believe this, the devs actually address the fact that they're telling the same story with Commander Squirtle.
Tarj told me that Zavala had forgiven himself for what happened to his family, but the witness made him relive losing them.
Hey, just because you're acknowledging that it's recycled doesn't make it better. Then Ghost says Ikora's gonna check in with Zavala while we do the next mission. I don't know if taking a mental health day while the universe is on the brink of collapse is a good tactical call, but I also don't know enough about military strategy to argue. In the radio message, Cade tells Crow what Amanda was like growing up, a thief and a brilliant mechanic, that she lived a damn good life and went out being a hero, and that we don't all get to do that. Some of us make stupid choices and die stupid deaths. Crow says, will you at least let me be sorry about that? Cade replies, shut up, that life isn't about drawing out the living part. It's about making what you do while you're alive matter. Once again, S-tier writing being delivered by a radio as an afterthought. In the previous cutscene, when everyone gets up from the fire, why not let Cade and Crow stay a little longer to have this conversation? It would have 10x the emotional impact. Step 4 of the checklist is done. It's mission 5, and we're off to climb a giant ice wall because someone watched Game of Thrones. On the way, the traveler screams out in pain at a surprisingly high pitch. I was curious, so I checked the credits for Final Shape, and the traveler is not listed under voice performance. It's literally not a character confirmed by Bungie. Or it just wasn't voiced by a human, which makes sense considering it's a tennis ball.
What was that?
Oh, I felt it too, little guy. That's the Traveler. A witness is digging around in its guts.
Then we get another intimate character moment between the two Cs. I maintain that this was an email that should have been a cutscene or cutscene equivalent. Look at me desperately trying to turn the HUD off in time to get into position. Why do I have to do all this work to enjoy the story that you're trying to tell me? Imagine going to the cinema, but if you don't bring your own speakers, there's no audio. What would Tom Cruise say about that? Huh? He would say something. Anyway, Crow finally tells Cade the actual reason he was resurrected. Somebody, Crow, accidentally, intentionally, made a mystical but cursed dragon wish, and here we are. Cade says he did the right thing keeping this a secret and not to tell Ikora or Zavala. They are having a self-care day after all. As the mission continues, it becomes increasingly obvious that Cade didn't take this news well. Crow says, are you sure you don't want to talk about why you're back? And Cade responds harshly that the why doesn't matter, it never did. A bit further on, Cade reveals that right now, he just needs to do something that feels normal, and that blasting Vex feels really, really normal. Crow says that's fine, and that even though he can't use the light, the Traveler hasn't abandoned him. But Cade didn't say anything about the Traveler, so I don't know why we're bringing that up. He then reflects that one of the first things his ghost Sundance said to him back in the day was that he was capable of greatness, and that Crow reminds him of her a little. Crow asks, how so? Cade responds, you're both a pain in my ass, which is crazy because they used to call me TH3 Ass Pain Jez. Some still do. Then the cringe-o-meter goes off a little for Crow's dialogue.
This reminds me of a shootout I had on Venus. Wound up stuck under a Cyclops for 2 hours.
You almost sound like you're having fun.
Aren't you?
Crow's line doesn't work for me because he's stating the most obvious and expected thing. If I were to rewrite it, I would have had Cade start with the same line. Then Crow responds, shouldn't we stay focused if this is the end of the world? To which Cade says, oh yeah, good call. I think something like that gives the punchline back to Cade, which makes more sense. And it doesn't seem like Crow is trying as hard to be funny, but it still keeps it playful. To Bungie's credit, overall Crow has been pretty cringe-free, which is nice. We exit the wall and step out onto the old Cosmodrome highway. Ghost says there's a massive energy spike coming from where he first resurrected us all those years ago. A fissure of intense light, or as I like to call it, the magic crack. Cade says that light is what it used to be like everywhere here, pure and powerful. That golden feeling you get when you're holding a winning hand, which, may I say, is one of the best lines in this entire expansion. That's such a poetic and elegant description. Just hearing that line makes me feel good. We suck the power straight out of that crack, and it gives us a brand new super. We use our newfound abilities so much, for a moment, I thought I was back in the Crucible. Our ghost reckons that was some special sippy juice straight from the Traveler itself. Then Crow's like, see, Cade, the Trav's still with us every step of the way. Except I thought Zavala was the one going through his I've lost faith in the Traveler arc. We still haven't had any direct indication from Cade that he's doubting the Traveler at all, so I don't know where any of this is coming from, but F me. Cade thinks if we can find another magical puddle, we can communicate directly with the Traveler. Despite our earlier breakthrough, Zavala is still seething and pissing and crying. He says the Traveler can give us all the weapons it wants, but we still don't have an effing clue what we're doing. I mean, that's a bucket of cold water, but how is he wrong? Ikora, who is still desperately running defense for the Traveler, is like, it did help us though, right? And it gave us Cade back, so that's good. Except no, it didn't. I hate to fact check you like this is a presidential debate. She only thinks it was the Traveler because Crow is keeping his naughty little dragon wish a secret. But even still, Zavala's like, bringing us Cade and a new super isn't good enough, but he has an idea. So he tells them about the veiled statue that called out to him at the house. He thinks the statue is a prisoner of the witness and that it might want to help. He's 100% right, of course, but Ikora says, no, it's a trick, you effing moron. The witness is weaponizing your grief and desperation against you. He fires back, what do you know about grief and desperation except how to turn it off? Tensions are high and I'm rock hard. She replies, that's not fair, which isn't a rebuttal and a tactic my wife also uses to make me feel bad, even when I'm right. Crow tells Zav about Cade's plan to commune with the Traveler through a special crack, and he's understandably not interested. Our ghost then tells us he thinks Ikora's right, because he's a filthy little simp trying to get a glimpse of that puss. Ikora's stance is that we should keep trying to talk to the Traveler, but why would we when it's never actually said anything in return? Sure, it gave us a vision earlier, but where has that gotten us except in debt to Sony? And Ikora herself tried to talk to it a few missions ago and got nothing. All we've heard is a few kinky screams, so it doesn't seem like it has anything of value to add, and that's why the shareholders are selling. Then Ghost says that the fire team needs you to anchor them, like we do for each other. Let me stop you right there. Huge assumption to say that we anchor each other, when I didn't even like you as a character, my guy. I'm sorry, but what is there to like about our Ghost as a character? His personality is stale. Sometimes he's optimistic, but in a boring kids show kind of way. He's not interesting or entertaining. He seems like he's there just to fill the silence left by our Guardian. He doesn't even have a name. He's a ghost named Ghost. That's like having a dog called Dog. There isn't a single piece of memorable dialogue I can point to in the last 5 years that came from him. And how many have I already highlighted from Cade just in this expansion? I wanted to make sure I'm not completely out of touch here, so I asked some friends what they thought of Ghost as a character. None of them had anything positive to say. Danielle's quote is my favorite though. She said, he feels like less of a character in the story and more of a nondescript narrator who blends into the background. He's personalityless and occasionally annoying. Wow, just to be clear, that's not how Bungie sees him. The way they've written him has a base assumption that we love our Ghost. I'm aware that this is a very critical, negative take, and I'm sorry to be such an effing downer about the main character of the entire franchise. No one speaks more than the Ghost. That kind of makes him the main character, right? If your response is, maybe Destiny's story just isn't for you, my guy, you hate the main character, then F me, that's actually really fair. So when Ghost said earlier that the fire team needs me to anchor them, I can't help but think of the previous Fireside cutscene where our Guardian sat there completely silent and out of place. We don't have a relationship with that fire team because we've never spoken to them. If I've never seen my Guardian speak to them, why would I think they're my Guardian's friend? This is what I mean about the silent Guardian thing not really making any sense. Everyone in that Vanguard fire team has definitely monologued at us, but a relationship is a two-way thing, and that hasn't been there. Then Ikora and Cade have a very sensitive conversation about Zavala over the radio with him standing literally right there. Why didn't they have him go to orbit like they usually do? Somebody effed up. Ikora brings us up to speed saying, Guardian, we were just discussing Zavala's crisis of faith. I know you feel it too. He's wondering. Let's just call a spade, shall we? He's not wandering away. He's completely lost faith in the Traveler's ability to help us. And that's okay, right? Why is everyone being so culty about it? Questioning is good. My only problem with this entire plot thread is that they've been explicitly telegraphing he's losing faith in the Traveler for over 2 years now. There's no surprise or intrigue left in it. You know what I mean? I like the tension and drama between him and Ikora, I guess, but not the entire framework justifying it. Look at the end of Zavala's nightmare wife storyline from Season of the Haunted. He says,
after everything we faced aboard the Leviathan, I'm left to wonder, have I made the right choices? I don't regret all the good the city has done, but what it took to get here, what it's taken to keep it, when is enough? Enough. Maybe it's time to let go.
It actually sounds like he might be done being a Guardian, because he also said our minds weren't meant for this many years and that eternity is too long. I think our boy is ready to retire from being alive. Finally, the lore summary page at the holo projector just states explicitly, Zavala is still weighed down by uncertainty and doubt. His faith in the Traveler and his choices that led him to where he is now is broken. Again, over 2 years ago. Back to the checklist, step 5 was actually find the crack. They didn't say that's what we were doing at the start of the mission, but that turned out to be the objective. Then Bungie makes what I consider to be a really weird structure-based decision with the campaign. You'll notice this banner says Final Shape Campaign, attempt to commune with the Traveler, start mission. But when I launch it, our HUD says The Message Part 1, which is a quest. They've dressed this up like it's a campaign mission, but we're actually doing a patrol quest called The Message Part 1, 2, and 3. The in-game Triumph page doesn't even list this as a mission. We just completed Ascent, which is 5, but we haven't started Descent, which is 6. By the way, you know someone at Bungie was pumped to get the Ascent, Descent wordplay in there. So why is this bad? Well, the message quest is to do the 3 new Lost Sectors, which should be fine because I like Lost Sectors. But I'm currently doing the Legend campaign, not the normal campaign. And the Lost Sectors are all at normal difficulty because this is patrol. So the gameplay intensity comes to a screeching halt. I'm already not using a build and thoughtlessly holding W through almost every encounter. 50% of what I care about in a campaign is the gameplay. The other 50 is the narrative. In this expansion, our Guardian toolkit has become so powerful, the main threat of death is carelessness. Every boss has at least one health gate shield so you can't insta-kill them. If the campaign is roughly 8 hours long, which it is, that's how much footage I have of all the missions, but you make me spend 1 hour totally disengaged at normal difficulty, that's 12.5% of the time, assuming the rest of it is totally engaging, which it isn't. It's extra weird because we have Legend difficulty Lost Sectors in the game. The 3 Lost Sectors we have to do on normal literally have that option, and I'm currently doing the Legend campaign. What are we even talking about here? Doing all 3 Lost Sectors is actually fine as a complete mission in and of itself, especially because there's a bunch of essential story beats that have been baked in. They structured this as filler content that's not a part of the campaign, but also you have to do this in order to move the plot forward. I have a theory as to why they did this that we'll come back to. So in Lost Sector number 1, we find a magical puddle, but this is not enough puddle per puddle. That's because the Witness is tightening its grip on the Traveler, like my wife tightens her grip on my balls when I've been a good boy. On the way to Lost Sector number 2, Crow wants to know what question Cayde will ask the Traveler if they do connect. Cayde says easy, I want my Sundance back, which is unusual because he said earlier he was basically in heaven and that she was there too, but he still wants to rip her back to reality. Kind of selfish, IMO. I only mention this because Bungie has been doing this thing where they sprinkle ghost love into the story. Crow has been saying how much he loves Glint, Zavala will say how much he loves Taj, Algos has been saying how much he loves us, and Cayde has been saying how much he loves Sundance. I'm just mentioning it now because it will be relevant later and I want you to keep up, you effing dummy. No kidding. We find the second puddle, but it's currently doing a podcast called Choke Me Daddy, so no luck there. In Lost Sector number 3, we find a little surprise waiting for us, a hive wizard named Luzaku. But she's on our side because Savathun told her to help us, I think. She says the Traveler's Touch is here, and you know what that means? It's crack time. Cayde and Crow transmat in and listen very carefully.
What is it?
It's a child's voice.
Are you serious?
Yeah, no, it's whispering something. Crow, Crow, why did you murder the handsomest hunter in Seoul?
I have to admit, this did get a little giggle out of me because it was so silly and unexpected. But then he actually does get a vision from the Traveler. It's pretty wacky and abstract. I had to look up several lore videos to understand the basics of what's going on here, which isn't good storytelling, to be clear. I've gone through every cutscene and piece of dialogue in this campaign like 3 times. If I still didn't get it, then Jesus Christ, I'm dumber than I suspected, or it was kind of unclear. We open on a white room of light that just made you squint your eyes if you're watching this video in the dark. Sorry about that. But also get effing flashbanged, my guy. Crow's also there, but he steps outside and he looks happy. I think this might represent him leaving the Traveler's Light to become a Guardian. Meanwhile, Ikora's fighting for her life in what looks like maybe the pit of hell. I guess she's been a naughty little warlock. This refugee fallen is also here because she stole those kids. Yep. Notorious little kitty grabber she is. Then suddenly, it's Zavala standing over Cade's corpse. He reaches out to touch the body one last time, but Taj blocks him. You can't just caress dead people. We've talked about this. I added that last part, but it's my best guess for why Taj did that. Sundance has slowly been saying 3 words this whole time: devotion, bravery, sacrifice. Cade turns to her and says, "The Guardian tenets." She finally greets him directly. That is not just a platonic hello. I may be an incel, but I know sexual chemistry when I do meth. Or Sun's voice actor accidentally turned the sultry dial to 1,000,000 for that one line. Cade asks Sundance, "Is that really you?" She replies, "I'm what you wanted me to be." In other words, no, that's not really Sundance, but the Traveler knows she is the best voice to communicate with Cade. She tells him, "You've been here before and you'll be here again. You just don't remember." I believe this is a vision of the Light of the Traveler, aka Guardian Heaven. This is where he was beyond death, at peace and reunited with his ghost and the Traveler. She continues, "What comes from the light returns to the light." He asks, "What if I want is to stay here with you?" Her answer is simply, "If that's the fate you make." If she really is a surrogate voice for the Traveler in this vision, what it just said is that Guardians always have a choice, and free will is in direct contrast to the Witness, as we'll soon discover. Finally, she says Guardians, ghosts, the Traveler, we're all connected. Then the Witness joins the call and says a bunch of racial slurs. No, he doesn't, but he was thinking about it. For 30 frames, we see the white Traveler bird being choked up by dark sludge. Big oil polluting nature again. There's an extreme close-up of the Witty's monobrow. Can somebody get this thing a Manscaped code? I'm gonna be sick. Suddenly, Cade is standing on your average American highway. Sundance is either having a seizure or an orgasm, impossible to tell which. And she's still repeating the tenets: devotion, bravery, sacrifice. Cade says, "I heard you the first time, but you forgot one." And before he can say death, she's killed by a sniper, just like the good old days. It's never clearly explained why the Traveler was spamming the Guardian tenets here. I think it's because somebody will have to die later, and that was the best foreshadowing Bungie could think of, which means the Traveler is trying to prepare Cade for what's gonna come towards the end. IDK, I'm literally guessing there. Also, Sundance being a surrogate voice for the Traveler in that vision is an extremely cool concept that they never actually confirm. It feels like they over-explain the boring stuff, and anything really interesting is just left vague and unexplored, but not in the cool, mysterious way. But then again, what do I know? I kind of get my own slow cooker to work in my own kitchen. The meat is always dry and I've tried everything. Back in the Lost Sector, Cade screams, "No, no, no, don't touch me, don't touch me, don't know." Pretty strong personal boundaries for a degenerate lifelong gambler who lived in crippling debt. Afterwards, our ghost is pretty much like, well, that was confusing. And moving forward, Bungie starts to slowly ramp up the all ghosts and Guardians love each other messaging, starting with Ghost saying, "If we don't make it out of here, I want you to know that I don't regret any of it. I'm yours and you're mine." Okay, let's not get too carried away, but he continues, "Nothing has ever felt more true, except knowing you were my purpose when I found your bones." A little on the serial killer spectrum now, hopefully that's it though. We're in this together, Guardian, until the very end. 3 obsessive statements in a row is too much, Harley Quinn, let's dial it back. Then we get the exact same thing from Taj towards Zavala in the radio transmission. Zavala's like, well, looks like the Traveler's demanding death. And Taj is like, no it isn't. Then he rants like, this is Romeo and Juliet on Broadway. I knew the moment I found you that we were made of the same stuff. A part of you called out to a part of me. Nothing can break that. Then he recaps the whole Hakim situation like we haven't covered that multiple times already. I've seen you at your lowest moment, when Hakim died, when you begged me to bring him back. You wanted to give up the light. You raised your gun. Zavala says, he's sorry. Taj continues, I understood. I was grieving too. If we could get through that, we can get through anything. Whatever you need to do, I'll be with you, start to finish. Screeching halt, whatever you need to do, he says. Very supportive, let's hang on to that. Zavala says, you keep me steady, Taj, when no one else can. So we have exactly 2 positive sentences from Zavala towards Taj. I'm sorry, and you keep me steady. 2 is not a lot. I wonder if there will be a single additional example. Back to the checklist, I'm gonna mark that as step 5.1, find another crack. It was not technically a mission, but the objective was essential to the plot, therefore unskippable. The campaign structure-based weirdness continues. According to this banner, we are launching another mission, except it's not a mission, it's a strike, at regular strike difficulty, which is 0. This is also not acknowledged by the in-game triumphs as an actual mission. And once again, it is filled to the brim with crucial plot points that cannot be missed. We still have Legend difficulty Nightfall strikes in the game, although they've been renamed. And since I'm still doing the Legend campaign, I would have enjoyed doing the strike on Legend because difficult gameplay keeps my brain engaged. But F me in my little effing hole, I guess. The goal of this strike is to keep moving forward, basically. How very Meet the Robinsons. Zavala is locked the F in, and Fireteam conflict begins immediately. Ikora says, it's not like you to encourage recklessness, Zavala. He says, it's not like you to lecture on recklessness, Ikora. I call this rebuttal technique the mirror of justice. And let me tell you, my wife is not a fan. It has never de-escalated an argument even once. Then Ikora says, there were other routes we could have taken, but you chose the most dangerous. Why? Zavala responds, isn't this the sort of risk you've always demanded I take? She says nothing because they need to stretch the dialogue out across the whole strike, but it could also be interpreted that it took her 3 full minutes to come up with a response. And that makes me giggle. When she does finally respond, it's just to say the same thing. We should have taken a different path, one that's more direct with fewer enemies. Babe, we're guardians. We eat enemy dicks for breakfast. We live to eat our enemies' dicks. Also, we've been stepping into danger like this for over 10 years now, including multiple god level beings and one guy in stilettos. But this strike is where she draws the safety line. IDK about all that. Eventually, we find a small ancient town with another veiled statue. It tells us to give ourselves to darkness to find the answers we seek. Zavala is pumped. He knows he was right. This statue wants to help us. Ikora says it could still be a trap and that she doesn't even recognize Zavala right now because he's excited we might have a lead on how to save the universe. You're right, that's so unreasonable and unhinged. Zavala fires back, you just don't like it when people change. She says, I don't like change that can cost lives. So let me get this straight. She won't risk one life to potentially save the universe, and instead she would like to play it safe with one life because she likes him and risk losing the entire universe. You've heard of the trolley problem, right? Well, this is that, but done poorly? Women, am I right? Zavala says, that isn't your decision to make, Ikora. When we faced Big Witch Mummy, you took unimaginable risks. Cade interrupts and says, that's enough. Completely saving Ikora because she's wrong and is being hypocritical and she knows it. The writers couldn't even refute Zavala's logic, so they were like, just have Cade cut them off here. When Zavala said, this isn't your decision to make, Ikora, he's right in 2 ways. 1, he's in charge. That's why he's the commander. It's his job. 2, he's only putting himself at risk and he's allowed to do that as an adult. Bonus reason, he's trying to save the universe. And Ikora's like, no, you can only save the universe how I think you should do it. Eventually, we kill the big Tormentor boss and Zavala is ready to follow the statue lead. Ikora disagrees and wants to go after Cade's vision as a lead, saying we should follow the path the Traveler has laid for us. Except there is no path, Ikora. What's the path? Go ahead, what should we actually do next with what the Traveler showed Cade? There's no action step. Zavala knows this and is like, it's just more riddles. What does devotion, bravery, sacrifice even mean? Ikora says, I don't know, but the Traveler wants you alive. He says, no, you do. That's what you want, Ikora. You're just afraid to lose me like we lost Cade. Spitting facts. And Cade just saves Ikora again, shouting that Zavala's out of line. She finally admits he's right and says, I can't lose you, Zavala. He brutally says, someday you will, and you'll have to learn to live with that. That's the strongest setup ever for a plot thread where Zavala either dies or sacrifices himself because he's been a guardian too long and is ready to move on. I can't wait to see what they do with it. After the mission, Zavala is contemplating what give yourself to darkness could mean. Crow tells him that this is just too reckless. Is it really though? We know that darkness is not inherently evil by now, and our Guardian uses multiple darkness-based subclasses. Crow says, we're your friends, we can find another way. First of all, we haven't found another way. And second of all, Zavala is finding that other way. Right now, we have no other way. Crow suggests the Traveler, and Zavala says it can't help us. It could never help us. I gave it everything I had, and it keeps taking. Crow tries to say that you have us, Cade, your fire team. Zavala simply responds, that's not enough. Imagine going up to a friend whose wife and son have died and saying, but you still have us, all your friends. Isn't that enough? It's kind of a deranged line of comfort, isn't it? So at this point, Zavala has completely rejected the Traveler and is living his best life. There's only 2 missions left in the entire campaign, but at least they finally committed to the thing they telegraphed for several years. 2 missions is plenty of time to do something cool with that, probably. Despite the commander making pretty reasonable decisions for the good of the universe, everyone is pissed. We will now obsessively track him down, whilst constantly repeating how important it is that we track him down. Yes, this will be the entirety of Mission 6, the second last mission of the 10-year Light and Darkness saga. Our ghost starts us off with a very unusual monologue. He says, bad news, the commander's left camp alone, without his ghost. Taj needs our help tracking hunting him down. Okay, but he intentionally left Taj behind. I don't see why we should undermine that. Zavala believes he'll find the witness's weakness by giving himself to darkness. Yeah, and he's right about that, actually. We knew what the risks were when we came here, that we might not all make it back out. So he's taking a well-informed, calculated risk. That's kind of what war is all about. Zavala's been making these kinds of decisions for hundreds of years, no? He's a military commander, but this time he seems frustrated, so it's unacceptable ooh-woo. Ghost continues, he pretends he's dismissed Cade's vision, but we've both seen what's behind his eyes. The gaslighting here is diabolical. In other words, I know Zavala clearly communicated that he wants one thing, which is to follow this lead alone, but the vibe I get from looking in his eyes tells me otherwise. And I'm pretty good at vibing like that. Thanks, Ghost, you're very perceptive. Sent from my iPhone. Zavala is ready to embrace his final death just for a chance to destroy the witness. He needs us. Just for a chance to destroy the witness? Like, that's not the best trade of his entire life? Am I out of touch here, or was Ghost's entire line of reasoning kind of psychotic? Leave a comment on my OnlyFans. Back to the checklist, that was step 5.2, find the statue. All that mission structure stuff was weird, but we're finally up to step 6, find Zavala. Again, you probably saw this coming, but from a narrative perspective, this one is going to be a huge miss for me. Before we even start the mission, character motivations seem completely nonsensical. Also, the vast majority of the dialogue is Ghost and Taj going back and forth. But like, we're about to end a decade-long saga here. I don't really know or care about Taj, and now he's a main character all of a sudden. I'm also not really invested in the relationship between him and Zavala. We've barely seen them interact. And the only two examples I could find of Zavala being positive towards Taj were at the radio like one mission ago. So other than this expansion generally telling us that Guardians and Ghosts love each other, we haven't seen it with these two. And Bungie is gonna lay it on thick to get you to care about him by the end of the mission. To give all this valuable screen time to essentially a brand new character when we're about to lose Cade forever, spoilers, sorry, was a critical error in my opinion, as opposed to the rest of this video, which so far has been completely objective. Taj opens by saying, I can't track the commander and he won't respond when I hail him. Maybe he thinks Zavala is a dog to be beckoned at will. Crow asks if Ikora is coming and Cade says, no, it's just you and me, which is ironic because these two will speak maybe 5% of the time. Taj says that when Zavala left, he was like, I'm going for a walk, look after them. Clearly he knew people wouldn't like what he was about to do, so he deliberately concealed it. And everyone has proved him right to do that by freaking the F out. Also, remember when Taj said, whatever you need to do, I'll support you? I'm beyond deceased at how quickly that changed. Then Taj goes, maybe we should keep talking to the statues. And our Ghost is like, do you think you can get them to talk? And Taj says,
they'll speak up if they have something to say. That's what I do. Come on. Let's establish a rapport.
I can't explain why I hate this, but I just do. I know that's not good enough, but I'm tired. Taj tries to demand the next statue speak to us, but it's immediately like, yeah, I would love to help you. We hate the witness. The statue says, okay, your guy is going after the witness, but you'll probably need to help him or he will get absorbed. The witness is basically Kirby and everybody's getting sucked. So the witness is actually made up of a bunch of people. Entities, they seem humanoid, so I'm sure people's fine. The statue says that there's people currently part of the witness who have secretly rebelled and that there are others who have been culled and are now bound, and not in a sexy BDSM way. Giant bombshell revelations, and Taj goes, so is that an offer to help us or not? My guy, get off TikTok and pay attention. He later continues, it sounds like those statues are prisoners of the witness, just as Zavala thought. I guess he was right after all. Yet not even a whiff of remorse for not believing or supporting Zavala. Interesting. At the next statue, Taj is like, okay, fine, you can help us, but why did you talk to Zavala? And the statue is like, I would love to tell you, except our voices are weak and it's too bright here, but give yourself to darkness, then we'll talk. Suddenly, our Ghost pipes up and is like, yeah, but can we trust them? It's one brain cell between these two, huh? Then this happens.
Any sign of the commander?
Ikora, you came.
Of course I came.
I don't know why Ikora was absent only to make a dramatic entrance 10 minutes into the mission, but okay. At the next statue, Taj has this little freak out.
I've had enough of this. Commander, come in. Commander, answer your comms now. This is the last time I let him walk away from me.
I think Taj sees himself as the all-knowing parent and Zavala as the stupid child. There's no other explanation that makes sense for how demanding he's being, right? Also, Zavala's personality is like very strong-willed and in control and kind of the leader of humanity. There's no way he puts up with effing Taj mouthing off, bossing him around like a bratty little bitch boy all the time, right? Anyway, our Ghost thinks these statues still have some connection to the witness, and that's why they can only speak to us in darkness. A pretty good theory, actually. Taj says that something made up of 1 billion individuals is bound to have a few dissenting voices. And right after he says that, the HUD label changes from veiled statue to a dissenter. Oh, we're cracking this case wide open. The dissenter tells us that they were the shame the witness could not bear, so they were cut out, like a 20% off coupon in a magazine. I'll be honest, I don't know if paper coupons or magazines still exist. I'm terminally online. Nevertheless, they've been imprisoned until they stop being naughty little space boys. At statue number 4, Taj is like, you used to be a part of the witness, just tell us how to kill it. The dissenter goes, ooh, but it's still too light in here. Please give yourself to darkness, as I said. Also, you can set us all free, so we're kind of counting on you. Crow's like, why would the witness even lock itself up like this? Kind of weird. Ikora explains, it seeks to control what it can't change and to change what it can't control. That's the purpose of Final Shape, which is a pretty good line, actually. Well done. It's a simple yet powerful explanation, and I love those. Taj's takeaway from all that is that the witness is afraid. Algos says, you couldn't have stopped Zavala, Taj. And he responds, true, but he is my commander. I watch out for him, I raise him when he falls. We let Guardians run amok, and look what happens. This is more of that controlling nature slipping through. Taj is like, look what happens when Zavala doesn't do what I want him to do. I love him so much and also do exactly as I say. At statue 5, yes, there's a lot of statues, Taj is like, just tell us how to free you then. The dissenter says it's not strong enough to aid us. Our ghost says, I don't think any of us are strong enough to do this alone. Taj replies, unfortunately, Zavala forgot that when he left without me. I think tonally, Taj is coming across more like a bratty child and not a loving equal. And every interaction this mission is either, how could he leave me? Or I just care about him so much. Or why won't he just obey me? Further in, Taj is like, I'm sensing a surge of energy, but I can't pinpoint Zavala's location. Algos chimes in, just concentrate on him, lol. Taj yells, I can't, then has an emotional breakdown. Algos is trying to reassure him, being like, it's okay, you don't have to know your guardian by his light. That's like saying to a parent, it's okay, you don't have to know your child just by their face. Let's just say it didn't land well. Taj responds with an anime protagonist monologue about the origins of his love for Zavala, the years they spent together, his feelings of inadequacy, finishing by saying to Algos, how would you feel after all that? Algos just stammers like a moron, and Taj goes, forget it, the feeling doesn't matter. The sass levels are unreal. Between Algos and Taj, we've got room temperature levels of emotional intelligence. Also, none of the other adults step in. They just let these two Bluetooth speakers go back and forth, back and forth. You interrupted Zavala multiple times, Cade. What's going on here, bud? I'm not angry, you are. No, really, you have a problem. At the end of the mission, Zavala is ready to give himself to darkness. That's what this door is. From outside, he can hear the dissenter whispering, help me. Ikora approaches, and instead of saying, you were right, we spoke to more statues, they said you needed our help, she just says, Zavala, don't do this. That persuasion is almost palpable. What being could withstand it? Also, how is this the sickest doorway I've ever seen? Somebody on the cinematics team really went, do you guys mind if I make the hardest door in all of science fiction real quick? And the team was like, okay, if you want to. Actually, every scene in this cinematic is kind of visually stunning. You can pause almost anywhere and you've got a decent wallpaper. So the witness has a few things to say here, starting with, Commander, you came to us for answers. We too once looked to the silent god for purpose, but all it could offer was more life void of meaning. But then a dissenter secretly interrupts and says, actually, that's a lie. We ran from it. But the witness continues. We sought its opposite, and in it found means to bring order to an unruly universe. And suddenly Zavala is looking up at the veil. You probably remember it as the central yet completely unexplained mystery of Lightfall's campaign, the previous expansion, hereby described as the opposite of the Traveler. We'll come back to this. The witness continues, your Traveler had no tolerance for such vision, and we had no tolerance for its ambivalence. Do you know what the word ambivalence means, by the way? I looked it up, and it actually means mixed or conflicting feelings / ideas. Mixed or conflicting. Back to the witness, it says, we would force purpose from it, driven by a single immutable will. So we culled our doubts, fears, anything that separated us, thus becoming one in darkness. Then a dissenter leans forward and secretly whispers in Zavala's ear, You've got a huge erection right now and I can see it through your pants. You might want to do something about that. No, it says what was made can be unmade. Meet us where we destroyed ourselves. The witness once again ignorantly continues, and now we would have you join us, Commander. Taj screams no and teleports in from literally nowhere. He says, I see what you are. And the witness, not even remotely troubled by him, is like, oh yeah? Taj answers, I see fear. This is not really a killing blow though, is it, Taj? Even if the witness is afraid, it's not going to be like, oh no, you correctly identified died, one of my emotions. I am now defeated. This is winning a battle to lose the war. Then Zavala cries out and the witness just grabs Taj like he's a little mosquito, which he is. It says, "We have done away with fear. We are not afraid." To be honest, that is exactly what someone who's afraid would say, so Taj is probably right. But still, he doubles down and trash talks from inside the witness's hand and says, "Yes, you are," literally begging to get crushed for no reason. Taj goes kablammy, rip bozo. Zavala falls through space and the fire team pulls him back out. Now, that was a pretty good cutscene. I don't personally feel anything for Taj because I only just met him like one mission ago. Then the time I did spend with him, he came across as a whiny, obsessed child with the arrogance of an adult who thinks they're right about everything. However, what if I told you the witness's origin story, while somewhat explained just then, is even more interesting than that? Okay, so Lightfall came out and the entire campaign was like, oh, the Veil, it's so important, but they never explained what it is or why it matters. Do you know when they did finally explain it? In a random seasonal cutscene 3 months after the expansion. It's called The Witness's Origins, and it's one of the most impactful and captivating cinematics in Destiny history. Let me take you through it really quick. God, I'm so caffeinated right now. Okay, so the people that became the Witness once shared a planet with the Traveler, just like humanity used to. There's a mosquito in my office. Great. Just great. Either suck me or get out. They called it the Gardener. And also like humanity, it brought them into a golden age for eons. That's more than 1 year. It lavished them with gifts and they lived in paradise. But there was a huge problem, an unignorable world-ending problem. The Traveler wouldn't talk to them. Yep, these single-celled amoebas were so emotionally fragile that this silence enraged them. What were they supposed to do? Just live in paradise and flourish forever? That's so cringe and hateful. But as they studied the Traveler, they realized it shared a connection with another entity, its opposite, just out there among the stars, and they called it the Veil. They immediately went and grabbed that veil, and as they studied it, they came to know the darkness, a power shaped by thought and consciousness. They decided that light was nothing but chaos, and with darkness, they could fix all that chaos thanks to the final shape. Eventually, they brought the Veil back to the Traveler and tried to force them to be together, and they were like, "This is good, right? You like this." But the Traveler has a little darkness intolerance in his tum-tum, so he did not like this and left their world spraying diarrhea as he went. Just kidding, I wish though. We actually see some of this playing out in that 3D cutscene. It's subtle, but in the 2D cutscene, did you notice for a moment when the Veil and the Traveler were combined, we got a triangle in a circle? I think this was the power of light and dark united, and with it, the people saw that they could reshape reality itself. This is why the Traveler fled. It wanted no part in that final shape. Later, when Prismatic is introduced, you'll notice its icon is a triangle in a circle, because as a subclass, it's the unity of light and dark. In game, when our Transcendence meter fills up, if we zoom in on the HUD, you'll see another triangle in a circle, light and dark. One more bonus fact. It wasn't until I was looking at Final Shape concept art when I stumbled on this storyboard. For some reason, it hit me like a ton of bricks. The ghosts of Destiny are made of triangles and circles. That motif has been there from the very beginning. That is very impressive. You probably already noticed that, but I have like a 10-year input delay, so that's how long it took me. Back to the Witness cutscene. So when the Traveler fled, this made the people the Angi. So they used the power of darkness to merge themselves into a sentient chimney. But because they had witnessed what they called the truth in darkness, they made it their purpose to pursue the Traveler, claim its power, and subdue the universe. So ultimately, the Traveler traveled and the Witness witnessed. It's pretty deep, you probably wouldn't get it. In the end, the Veil was actually pretty interesting and pretty easy to explain, and yet they couldn't fit any of that in the 8-hour Lightfall campaign. That 3.5-minute Witness cutscene was an absolute 10 out of 10 banger, to be released 3 months after the campaign in a random seasonal quest. But the campaign where we're actually introduced to both the Witness and the Veil, nowhere to be seen. There was more value and impact in those 3.5 minutes than there was in all of Lightfall IMO. God forbid we get the backstory of the main villain in the main campaign. Imagine if Marvel never explained what the Infinity Gauntlet was in Infinity War, then explained it 3 months later on Disney+. Immeasurable levels of incompetence from someone at Bungie. Whatever the reason is, like upper management forcing them to rip it out of Lightfall so the following season had narrative revelations worth paying for in the season pass, it doesn't really matter, because we'll never know, and it's not my job as the customer to care. If I order steak at a restaurant and they serve me feces, it's not my job as the customer to care whether management told them to serve me feces. If product bad, product bad. Like if you think I've made a boring video, I can't just say, yeah, but please watch it anyway because making a good video is hard. No, you just click away because that's your right as a customer, and it's not your job to know how hard videos are or how hard my wiener is. Can you have empathy for the waiter who served you feces because management told them to? Of course. If you want to. But that's completely separate to the fact that you're a paying customer and you didn't order feces. I think I've made my point there. So remember, that Witness origin cutscene came out over a year before Final Shape in the middle of a season. What percentage of players had actually seen it before jumping into the Final Shape expansion? If you watched the 3D cutscene of Zavala versus the Witness and you already know the backstory of the Veil, the Traveler, the Witness people, it's just so much more interesting and layered and personal. Yet no one in the campaign gave us even a minor refresher on some of those crucial details. It should have been required viewing, nay, against the law in your local jurisdiction to start Final Shape without watching the Witness origin cutscene. God, this has riled me up so much. But Jez, you didn't keep up with the story and that's on you. I think most people probably missed the week 5 side quest cutscene from 13 months before the expansion. If I had to guess as a percentage, probably over half. Maybe I'm out of touch, or maybe I'm exactly right about this. So with everything we've now learned about the Witness, I'm finding its arguments much less persuasive. Like, the Traveler gives life, but not meaning, and the Witness finds that to be annoyingly ambivalent. That's the thing. For the Traveler, it's BYO purpose. It'll bring the life, but then it says, what to do with this life is entirely up to you. The Traveler's basically a rich daddy who gives his kids a bunch of cash. Then he has the audacity to say, kids, buy whatever you want, it's your money. And the Witness's response is, but what should I buy? I hate you for not telling me, you're so ambivalent, I'm ending the universe. Back to the story. So right after the fire team pulls Zavala out, we have an emotional little chat. And Zavala's done a complete 180 as a character. He's weak, he's broken, he's unsure, and he's filled with regret. It felt like we got one mission where he'd finally changed and was going his own path. Everything was pointing to him either sacrificing himself or being seduced by the Witness. Oh my God, it was gonna blow my dick right off. The most righteous, steadfast character in the franchise was about to get wild. But as soon as I saw how quickly they reverted his character, I knew they weren't gonna go through with any of it. It was like they took him right up to the edge of the cliff, but instead of doing something interesting, they were like, okay, that's enough. Let's put everything back the way it was. And as I was saying, the Taj death didn't really do anything for me because I don't really know him. And it felt like Bungie was trying to manipulate me into caring about him as quickly as possible so they could kill him off and have it mean something. I'm surprised because they already did this exact move with Rohan in Lightfall's campaign. Except we spent even less time with Taj than we did with Rohan. And no one cared about Rohan when he died. Strange, weird, unusual. At the campfire, everyone keeps calling what the dissenter said a riddle. What was made can be unmade. Is it just me, or is a riddle a bit of a stretch here? What was made can be unmade is as close to saying the Witness can be killed as spiritually possible. So to be like, oh, the riddle, what can it possibly mean? Does it mean the Witness can be unmade? No, it's far too complex for that. That is what it means though. So we're off to visit the birthplace of the Witness, and wouldn't you know, it's not too far from here. Bungie sprinkles another Guardians don't appreciate their ghost enough line via Cade before he leaves. Then our ghost rants about how great Taj was, but eventually he does say something interesting. Quote, I want to believe that his light has returned to the Traveler, like Sundancer's did, like mine will someday. This will be important later. Then he says, now, thanks to Taj, we have a chance. Not really. We have a chance thanks to Zavala. Taj provoked the Witness multiple times and maybe didn't even need to die. We don't know what the Witness would have done. It might have been chill. Anyway, back to the checklist. Find Zavala again is complete. Next step is to find the Witness in the last mission. I know I haven't talked about the gameplay side of Final Shape much. That's mostly because just focusing on the story has taken weeks of full-time scripting at this point, and I want to die. However, I will make an exception right now. The game wants me to go to the right, fight a bunch of enemies, and eventually work my way around to that green thumb. Wait, I just realized, is that a Gardener reference? If so, that's the deepest Easter egg in gaming. The dev who did that must have been like, no one will ever get this. Greg, I've put a green thumb in the game. But is there anything more enjoyable than hitting the zoomies and crossing a huge gap as a Guardian? Why do game devs hate fun? The only saving grace of that invisible wall was making me go past this gloopy waterfall frozen in time. The world art team went so unreasonably hard. The Witness starts mouthing off more and more as we get closer to the monolith, this time saying, your search for purpose continues. What is it you seek? Your endless pursuit of us yields you nothing. My guy, you just got done with your endless pursuit of the Traveler, so I don't want to hear it. Also, commenting on our purpose is rich coming from a purposeless smoky dildo. Crow once again says, that riddle, how do we unmake the Witness. And lucky for us, Ikora has instantly worked it out. She says the same way the Witness plans to remake the universe, the Traveler's Light. The Witness using the light, but also being weak to it, is very dragon type from Pokemon. Zavala says, because us Guardians are able to wield both light and darkness, we have an advantage, and that makes us special. My mummy always said I was special, but I think she meant on the spectrum. Further in, the Witness says, actually, I don't think you're even looking for hope. You just like an endless challenge, don't you? I do love an endless challenge, like getting a good night's rest or not being ashamed of my body. The Witness says, game recognizes game, bitch, and I am also a conqueror, that what can be destroyed must be destroyed. I do love killing stuff, so all of a sudden I'm back in. Then the Witness says, wouldn't you like to find your purpose, achieve your potential, be chosen? My guy, I already have a purpose, and that's to make my wife laugh at least once a day. You didn't think I was gonna go wholesome with that one, did you? But my true purpose is to make money so she can spend it. Then we have a boss encounter with Doglick, Blade of Reasoning. Except the actual boss fight in the room is the effing wizards in these blights. I died here so many times, mostly because I refused to respect the wizards and they kept ripping my dick. I don't mind though, because it forced me to finally switch to Prismatic for a little bit of extra juice. Actual combat difficulty for the second time, and it only took until the final mission of the campaign. We did it, Reddit. Downvote, and thank you for the gold. So in this encounter, after we've been to the Darkness Realm and then claimed the appropriate symbols, a shield of light emerges from a magical traveler crack. Our ghost says that this is a gift from the traveler. It must be trying to help us. We use it to take down the ogre shield and start DPS. After the encounter, Woody's back to lashing out, this time saying, for all your power, you just kill to receive glittering rewards, the commendation of your peers, and triumphant accolades. Commendations, pointless system, get it out of the game. Triumphs, I've never really cared, too much busy work. But shiny weapons and exotics? Guilty as charged, I'm a thirsty little boy. The Witness says, we offer you an escape. Unfortunately, the only true escape is to stop playing Destiny. After a long drought, we finally get another playful Cade interaction.
Sounds like the Witness thinks you're hot stuff.
It flattered me too. It offered me the Awoken Throne, a kingdom all my own, my sister's love.
How is your sister?
Mara answers, on my way with all the other good guys. But how long has she been listening though? I mean, that timing was unbelievable. As we progress towards the monolith, climbing higher and higher, Ghost can't help but chime in.
I really don't like the look of these rooms.
I don't care what you think, my guy, you're a portable battery hooked up to Siri. Then we have a secret business meeting with the Witness, and it's like, okay, for real, here's my final offer. You're stronger than everyone around you, and we both know it. I may have judged humanity a bit too early. I tell you what, you deserve power, even more than the Traveler would give you. Join us as a god, and we'll exclude you from the big freeze. Except joining the Witness as a god is a huge pay cut for us. We kill gods for a laugh and a new outfit. Also, I've already got more power than the Traveler could ever give me. What do you think all the darkness and prismatic stuff is? Furthermore, I'm not even part of humanity. I'm an immortal guardian. Don't lump me in with those filthy casuals, or as I like to call them, the paws. Our ghost interjects.
Tarj was right.
Silence, you insolent speck.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't familiar with your game. Go on, King.
You seek the place we destroyed ourselves. Come.
Then at last we reach our final objective, the place where it gave birth to itself. I love the name of this area. Someone was like, what about the sacred? No. What about the terrarium? Also no. What about the sacrarium? Greg, you've done it again. I don't know what the particle budget was for this expansion, but they've spent it all here. And that was a good choice. The Witness slowly materializes into the size of kind of a regular guy, actually. Its smoke pillar is also quite small. I guess it's cutting back on carbon emissions. The boss health bar appears and it says the Witness. Except there's one small problem. We don't fight the Witness in this mission at all. It's smoke and mirrors. The Witness is technically here, and technically it does attacks occasionally, but we don't actually engage with it. Remember that mission list screenshot from earlier? This is mission 7 of 7 for the Legend campaign, and this is the final boss fight. So who are we fighting? This random subjugator, followed by another random subjugator, followed by the first subjugator again. That's it, that's the whole boss fight. Let me briefly take you through it. So we get the first mini boss to half health, he goes immune. Then a shield appears. Ooh, I wonder what the Traveler wants us to do. It's so impartial and silent. We use the shield on the mini boss immunity, stand on this wireless charging pad to block a big windy boy attack, kill the mini boss, and a sword appears. A sword of the Traveler. God, its objectives are just so ambiguous. My free will is raging right now. We teleport into the other room where all the naughty stuff went down. A dissenter tells us that in darkness, they saw their own as the victim, so they reshaped themselves to become purpose for the universe. But they got lost in it, so they ask us to kill them. As we destroy the statue, the witness loses a third of its immunity bar. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is exactly the same, but now the air slowly kills you if you don't have an acorn buff. Back in the Shadow Realm, a dissenter tells us that the light will tear them, split them, forgive them, and free them. That is a surprising amount of things. So we smash another statue and the witness loses another chunk. When we come back to reality, the first mini boss that we already killed gets resurrected with 5% HP for some reason. I am flashing back to Destiny 1's vanilla campaign final mission. For the last boss fight, we had to fight 3 of the same Minotaur, and this isn't that dissimilar. I killed the last subjugator in a few shots, and I noticed our fire team has finally joined us. I see Ikora, Zavala, Cade, Crow's here somewhere. That's a nice little morale boost, but it's straight back to the Batcave for a 3rd time. The dissenter says our gardener can't help us while imprisoned and that we need to free it. We crack the final egg and the witness screams, but we cut you out. Me, when I thought I got all the mushroom out of my dinner, and then I taste mushroom. I bet if I grew fungus between my toes for 9 months, that would taste better than mushrooms do. I'm just saying. We teleport to a final corridor and there's another shield, which is convenient because we're stuck at 1% HP. Step bro, who did this? It's essentially a scripted segment where you just hold forward like a titan in PvP. As we reach the end, Marasov beams us up into the ship. The gameplay of the mission is over at this point, but there are 2 more cutscenes. Before I show you those, let me quickly tell you why I was so disappointed by the final encounter. In terms of difficulty, the gameplay was certainly engaging enough, although a lot of it is basically scripted on rails events. The Shadow Realm and the final corridor don't really have any actual gameplay in them, other than stand still for a while and crack this statue or hold W. But in terms of narrative, I was struck by a certain idea like a bolt of lightning. And once I thought of this idea, I knew I would never look favorably on this mission. Here's the idea. The final boss of mission 7 should have been Zavala. A lightning strike instead of Taj dying at the end of mission 6, which caused Zavala to instantly abandon all his character development. In that cutscene, Zavala should have joined the witness. He was right there and all signs were pointing to that. I don't mean sucked into the main body. He could have stayed as an external assistant for the time being. Then mission 7 could have been him trying to convince us that the witness is actually right, culminating in a fight to the death as the final encounter. Now, because of what happens in Excision, the next mission, I don't think you can kill off Zavala here, but as we get him an inch from death, Taj gets caught in the crossfire and Zavala accidentally kills him. That is what triggers the commander to wake up and see the error of his ways. Obviously, I just did a quick and dirty rewrite. They could smooth out some of the plot holes and restructure it appropriately. I can't rewrite the entire campaign with a 3-sentence example, but Bungie are the ones that made the second half of the campaign about Zavala. They even took him 90% of the way to embracing the witness. I say take it all the way and make it unforgettable. At least with my version, when Zavala does a complete and immediate 180, it feels justified. Think about how bonkers exciting it would have been to fight Zavala. And now think about what we got instead. 2 nondescript subjugators. Back to the end of mission cutscenes though. We open on the Vanguard fire team still at the altar. I think they needed a narrative justification to not have our Guardian in this cinematic because it was featured heavily in all the marketing for the expansion. So they were like, get the Guardian out first, then everyone else can make a run for it in our very expensive promotional material. And I do have to admit, this whole cutscene screams extra marketing budget level polish. It is very well done. By crushing some dissenters in the Darkness Realm, it appears we've done a little ouchie to the witness. It force grabs Marasov's ship like it's trying to kill Chewbacca. That feels like a very tame attack though, doesn't it? If you're strong enough to stop the ship from flying, you can probably also smash it to the ground, right? All it does is briefly pause the ship. Why is this even in the cutscene? Then it turns into a colossal octopus. A coloctopus, if you will. It looks insanely cool. And think of the HJs this thing could give. Inappropriate. Then the witness screams, in your wake, there is only suffering, which is kind of like Hitler saying to the rest of the world, stop resisting, look at all the suffering you're causing. There are hands going everywhere, but the witness is having some real trouble actually grabbing anyone. If only it knew how to freeze things in place from a great distance. Crow pulls out a massive flaming axe, and in a rare turn of events, I'm not talking about his cock. Why does he have this though? And where does he keep it? I like to think that it's just under his armor and on fire at all times. Anyway, Crow has a nice cock, and everyone makes it out okay. Back to the checklist, and step 7, find the witness, is complete. The final cutscene plays, and Marasov is like, well, we lost that battle. Then she tells us that she's been gathering allies, including but not limited to the elephant people, the tech bros, and 1 additional hunter. Wow. I almost couldn't keep up. She says our next step is to weaken the Witness's hold on the Traveler, because right now the Witness is a leech and the Traveler is my exposed ankle on a hike. Basically, this moment is a narrative setup for the raid. The goal of the raid is to storm the monolith and sever the connection between the Witness and the Traveler. Mara's cutscene ends with a subtitle for that subtitle. I've always found text without subtitles very difficult to read. As we land back at the tower and get our final monologue from Ghost, the text reads, "You have completed the legendary campaign. 7 out of 7 missions." Except it feels like a weird place to end, doesn't it? Imagine if this is where my review of the story concluded. I think you would be pretty unsatisfied. It'd be like reviewing the Lord of the Rings trilogy right before they reached Mount Doom. This is where I think Bungie makes another weird campaign structure decision, because there's kind of technically an 8th mission. What you're supposed to do is finish mission 7, which we did, then do an exotic quest called Wildcard, which I'll touch on in a sec, then do a few adventures, which are basically mini quests, but none of them are essential to the plot, so I'm not even gonna cover them. Then do the raid, Salvation's Edge, and then do the final quote-unquote mission, even though the game has already told us the campaign is over. I think everyone can see that there's several other mission-adjacent missions that they didn't include in the official list, potentially all because they have an obsession with the number 7, and it seems like they moved heaven and earth to structure the campaign list in a way so it looks like there's only 7. No one outside of Bungie cares about this. It was such a bizarre decision, IMO. Almost every Final Shape campaign mission list online will include number 8, even though the in-game campaign list itself doesn't. The game director at the time said in an interview with PC Gamer that the Witch Queen and Lightfall campaigns each had 8 missions, and Final Shape will launch with 7 on day 1, strongly implying that the 8th and final mission that unlocks after the world first raid completion is indeed part of the campaign. But as I said, narratively speaking, after mission 7, you're supposed to complete an exotic quest called Wildcard, where Cayde and Crow do a bunch of buddy cop shenanigans. It is so good, it could also have been classified as its own campaign mission easily. There's a bunch of tender, emotional moments between the two Cs. They talk about purpose, Crow learns to be more fun, there's a sick action cutscene, Cayde completely forgives Crow for killing him and ultimately offers him the job as Hunter Vanguard. There's so much good stuff jam-packed into this mission. And I'm very conflicted because technically none of it is essential to the main plot. It's all a minor aside between Cayde and Crow, but if you care about either of these characters, which we do, it certainly feels essential to the story, especially because Crow tells Cayde at the start, "I'm not sure I have a purpose either, but no matter who or what gave you life, you should do whatever you want with it." And that is exactly the philosophy of the Traveler. God, it's so relevant. Then at the end of the mission, when Cayde makes the offer, Crow says, "But you're the Hunter Vanguard." And Cayde replies, "Not anymore, kid. I can't be tied to a desk if I'm gonna find my purpose." So good, and technically not even part of the campaign, even though it's important character growth. I'm bolding and asking to see the manager. But at last, we're on step 8 of the checklist, kill the Witness. We found all the things. My God, we found so many things, didn't we? So you may or may not have done the raid by the time you launch the final mission called Excision. It doesn't matter though, because you don't actually kill the Witness in the raid, so it's fine. Launching Excision gives us this cutscene that has almost a beat-for-beat Endgame Avengers Assemble moment. Even the music literally sounds like it's about to crescendo into the Avengers theme. It's got the same pacing, which is fine. I haven't had an original thought in over 5 years. I like turtles. We're joined by the pirates, the gym bros, the hot girls, the other main characters not in this expansion, the guy my wife thought was the hero of Destiny, and your favorite auntie who looks surprisingly good for her age. Zavala has a stylish "I use stasis now" moment. At the end of Wildcard, in a radio message, he asked Ikora to teach him. I was surprised by this because I thought you needed a ghost to use magical Destiny powers, but it turns out only light-based abilities need a ghost. Darkness powers don't give an F. And not to backseat game, but if I know anything about fighting Scorn, most of these guys are holding lanterns. Shoot one and the entire army explodes. The highly combustible jars of fuel being carried unprotected into the heat of combat is a very poggers move. So the thing about Excision is that it's a 12-player activity. And the reason they did this, according to the previous game director, was that they wanted the Witness to feel superior to every other boss we've ever fought in Destiny. So the format of the final encounter had to feel different. That is a completely fair justification on paper. The reasoning is sound, with one small problem. I hated that it was a 12-person activity. I know, I'm the worst person who's ever lived, including the people on Twitter who you disagree with. I'll tell you everything that didn't work for me, but let me quickly take you through the mission itself. There's 2 rooms in the whole thing. The front room, which we're in now, and the back room where the witness is. We capture 4 zones out here while sucking each other off. Delete this from the script and don't read it out loud. That unlocks the door and we head to the final room. As we enter, the witness is giga mad. It's ranting about kitchenware or something. I'm not a chef, so IDK.
We are the first knife. We are the edge that carved purpose into being. Your resistance will be remembered within the shadow of the Black Fleet.
Now, that is how a villain should sound. I also like that the witness has kind of come to respect us, saying, you will be remembered, actually. You were very annoying. Also, this final form design gives me a raging hard on. It doesn't make sense though, because to describe its appearance, you'd be like, okay, it's basically a regular guy, monobrow, candle head, 25 hands. They're like 25 hands and you're like, yeah, at least 25 hands. Like imagine if Edward Scissorhands was an inbred starfish. That's a good description and you know it. Saint 14 shows up and drops a bubble right away, but because the code for this mission is held together by sticky tape and Red Bull, that bubble fades in after the animation. If you do this mission on Grandmaster difficulty, you'll be lucky if your weapon even spawns in. Then we kill 2 mini bosses and Ikora is like, look for Nimbus. Nimbus is gonna do something cool. Then Savathun says something about Nimbus doing a thing, but Nimbus doesn't get a single speaking line, despite having a little pop-off moment. Bungie heard Lightfall's feedback and they were like, you know what? Let's cut the Nimbus dialogue from Excision. That just made me laugh when I realized that. We grab some light from the Traveler's Crack and dunk it into this amoeba. Then it's just mission 7 again, and everyone grabs a sword to smash a statue. That triggers DPS, so everyone jumps up and shoots the glowy spots, which exposes the witness's heart, ? While DPSing, the witness does left or right hand blasts, which you have to dodge, but only a filthy casual would fall for something so obvious, which is why it got me every time. That's phase 1, so we repeat all those steps for a few minutes, including me once again getting killed by the hand attack. Last time it came from the right, this time it came from the left. I mean, what could I have done? Memorize both direction? Get a life. After the second DPS phase, we call to our ghost and he says to channel the Traveler's light through him. Right as he says this, the icon for our subclass on the HUD changes from whatever it is to the Destiny logo, breaking the 4th wall. This is the moment Guardians make their own fate, where we choose our own destiny. This results in a big boy move, and the witness only likes little boys, so this is an FBI open up moment brought to you by Mountain Dew. Don't get mad at me, take it up with the witness. Huge explode, and the witness's final words are I don't understand. Notice when it's succeeding, it says we, but in its moment of greatest failure, it says I. That is a concept called taking responsibility and will look excellent on his LinkedIn profile. If only Bungie upper management could hear about such a concept. Before we get to the final cutscene, let me tell you why I didn't like this mission. Clearly, they had a vision and they executed. I think they chose to prioritize spectacle and novelty, and they nailed that. It just didn't land for me personally. There's several reasons why, starting with the fact that 12 is just too many. My individual contribution felt completely meaningless from a gameplay perspective, and it wouldn't have made 1 second of difference to our final time. I know that's a huge self-report for being a non-contributor, but if you've done this mission, you'll know what I'm saying. You don't have to lift a finger and everything around you dies because there's 12 Guardians in a reasonably small space. I guess I just wanted my individual participation to matter. Sure, I can participate in killing the witness in this mission, and I tried to, but it doesn't matter whether I do or not. That dovetails with my second point. There is no legend difficulty. I crave the legend difficulty campaign experience. This is the final mission of that campaign and it's on normal difficulty. In fact, easier than normal because there's 11 other people chomping at the bit to vaporize every foe. Vaporize is such an underrated word. God, language gets me so fired up. I know what you're thinking, but Jez, you can just do it on Grandmaster difficulty. First of all, not a release you couldn't. That came out later. Second of all, I'll never get my first clear back. There's something special about that virgin run. Not getting to do it with a decent gameplay challenge is a bummer. Third of all, the Grandmaster version suffers from the same problem, but on the other end of the spectrum. Everything has so much health that I still can't make any individual difference because it takes so many people shooting an enemy to kill it. Fourthly, did I say I craved the Grandmaster difficulty campaign experience? No, I said I craved the Legend difficulty campaign experience because it's such a good sweet spot most of the time, especially for solo players. Final Shape's campaign was mostly too easy in the first half and mostly just right in the second second half, at least solo. As a fire team of 3, it was too easy on Legend the entire way through, but I'm not even gonna get into that. Legend was sorely missed from the Excision experience, especially because I think the fire team size limit should have been the same as the campaign. Either let me solo it so I can solo the entire campaign and get that complete experience, or let me come in with 1 to 2 friends. Hell, even keep the matchmaking if you want to search for a group of 3. I do agree with Bungie that if I'm solo, there's a bit of a narrative dissonance. Like, isn't this the guy with the biggest cock in the universe? How can one Guardian take him down? I would get around that by having some allies teleport in next to me every time I start DPS. Throw Cade, Crow, Ikora, and Zavala up there or something. Then it's a group effort and the Witness would still feel like a special enemy. But my personal contribution will have felt meaningful and essential, and victory will have been hard fought / earned. I understand that's probably a minority take, but if you disagree, you hate minorities. Kinda racist if you think about it. Back to the story, so Ghost just did the big move and now he's dead.
No!
Well, look who decided to speak after being almost completely silent this entire campaign.
Ghost?
Guardian has a lot to say, actually. Suddenly, we're surrounded by the light of the Traveler. This is Guardian Heaven.
Please. Bring him back. He's just a ghost. You raised an army. You can bring back one ghost.
He sure shined bright back there, huh?
It's weird to see our Guardian speaking and interacting with Cade as an almost exclusively silent protagonist. Except in this moment, it's full personality, baby. Cade tells us that what comes from the light returns to the light, quoting Sundance from earlier, who was actually the Traveler. She also said that Guardians, Ghosts, and the Traveler are all connected. He looks to the side and we see Sundance. Maybe his actual Sundance, waiting for him close by, somewhere else in the light of the Traveler. Cade says, "This was my choice, my light. Nobody makes my fate but me." And like an organ donor, fresh from a car accident, he transfers his light to our Ghost, leaving us with his final words.
You're my favorite. Don't ever forget that.
Our Ghost splutters back to life, and I can't help but feel like this was the worst trade since Bored Apes were available for money. Cade leaving the franchise so our Ghost can stay was the biggest miss of the entire campaign for me, but only because I'm selfish. It was actually a really good ending for Cade if they had to get rid of him. The way Nathan Fillion delivers that final line makes me think of a story I saw on Reddit 8 years ago. A Destiny player went to an event that Nathan Fillion was doing a meet and greet and brought Cade 6's modified Treasure Island book that came with the Taken King Collector's Edition. When the guy explained what the book was to Nathan, his eyes lit up and he signed the book as Cade 6. Someone else in the comments of that post also met Nathan that day. They had brought their sister's pencil sketch of Cade 6. Fillion signed it, then took the time to draw his own sketch on the next page of the book. I think he loves the character, and it shows because not a single line he delivered in Final Shape felt like it was low effort or phoned in. Cade told us early on that he prefers being dead because there he was at peace. He expresses regret at the way he died foolishly, saying it was a stupid choice and a stupid death, but ultimately he forgives his killer and himself, in the end finding purpose by choosing to go out on his own terms. He finally gets to die a hero. This was a good arc for him. Going back to the cutscene for a second, after our Ghost came back to life, there's a long, intimate moment between him and our Guardian.
Guardian. There you are.
This is literally the first time I've seen my Guardian show affection to Ghost. So although it is a touching moment, I don't personally feel anything. This whole concluding story beat lives or dies on how you feel about Ghost. So I did a poll on YouTube asking people exactly that. Are you emotionally invested in our Ghost as a character? Like, do you care about him? At the time of 14,000 votes, almost half the people said no. And remember, these are people subscribed to a Destiny YouTube channel. These are the most passionate, engaged players. And almost half of this group said no. All I asked was, do you care about him? It's a pretty low bar. Imagine asking Halo players after 10 years if they care about Cortana. I'm willing to bet my virginity that at least 90% would have said yes, if not 95 or higher. Her tight body and big naturals have nothing to do with it, you sick freak. So because I, the player, don't care about Ghost, and because I've never seen my Guardian, the character, care about Ghost either, to me it falls flat because no one in this entire interaction cares about him. It was the same situation when Taj died. I, the player, didn't care about Taj, and I've never really seen Zavala, the character, care about him either. In Halo, I cared about Cortana and not her big naturals. I cared about Chief, and I cared about the relationship between the two. So when something happened to her, that was a very effective story beat. And if you felt something for our ghost when he died, it might be because you're dumb and trickable, or it's because you have what my therapist likes to call a healthy emotional range. I've asked her to stop mentioning that in our sessions. Then we get a moment of peace back at the tower, where everyone passes a blunt and we light a few candles, followed by a wordless 2D cutscene where we get hints at what all the characters are up to now, I think. Finally, we see our Guardian sitting on a platform, staring out at the Travassi, while Crow does a 2-minute ultra-dense exposition dump about what's going on logistically with all our enemies. Don't really care about any of that, because when we go back to the Pale Heart, there's one final message waiting from a friend.
Guardian, thank you for being the best friends a fella could hope for. Best fire team I didn't want, and the best bet I ever lost. I know folks will miss me. I'm being held together by light and wishes, and it feels like I'm here for a good time, but not a long time. You get me? So while it lasts, I need this life to have a reason. I need it to mean something. And if you're hearing this, you did. I hope I got it right this time.
All he wanted to do was make everyone, including himself, proud. Well, mission accomplished, and God bless America. That was a beautifully written and acted piece of art. I got emotional several times just going through it again, even though I've already seen it. Anyone else feel like it was kind of wasted on an audio log? One of the most famous monologues of all time is called Tears in Rain from the end of Blade Runner. It's 42 words, 5 sentences, less than a minute long. One critic described it as perhaps the most moving death soliloquy in cinematic history. Side note, remember everything I said about being succinct? I've never been more right about that. 42 words. Now imagine that famous monologue was just a voiceover and we never saw the actor's face or body language. Probably wouldn't be as good, right? This was Cade's death soliloquy. We couldn't have gotten a hologram of him speaking for a morsel of body language. God forbid it was even a cutscene of him sitting down to record these words. Huge opportunity lost, IMO. And I've taken up sewing to cope. You've pushed me over the edge. I might be reading too much into this, but it also kind of felt like the writers were addressing the audience in that final message as well. Cade says, I hate goodbyes, so this ain't that. Dev translation, if this is where you choose to end your destiny journey, it is goodbye. Cade says, this is me saying thanks. The devs are also saying that. Cade says, I know folks will miss me. I never wanted to open up more hurt, but I don't think I can just head back to the tower. The devs are saying, we know how much you love Cade. We're sorry we had to kill him off again right away, but we couldn't just have him return to the game permanently. Cade says, I'm being held together by light and wishes, and it feels like I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Bungie Studio, while they were making this expansion, was being held together by light and wishes. The devs would have known this is Destiny's final major expansion in a lot of ways, and that the future of the game, the studio, and the literal jobs of the developers writing these words is very uncertain. Cade says, while it lasts, I need this life to have a reason. I need it to mean something. The devs are saying, for whatever time we've got left, we hope we made some art that meant something to you. Cade says, I want to make everybody proud, but even better, I want to make me proud. I hope I got it right this time. The devs are saying, we've dropped the ball in the past, but we wanted to end with something that lived up to our own potential, that we could be proud of, and we hope we got it right this time. This hits especially hard knowing that after Final Shape came out, Bungie laid off hundreds of employees. Again, I might have hallucinated this entire thing, like when you thought you had a chance with that girl, but as I thought about it, I just couldn't believe how much was lining up. We are inspired to write what we know, and with how turbulent things were at the studio, there's no way that wasn't at least in the back of their mind, right? So, looking back at the focus of the entire campaign, Mission 1 was mostly about the Pale Heart, with a Cade cutscene at the end when we find him. Mission 2 was mostly about Crow and Glint. Mission 3 was mostly about Ikora, with a bit of Cade at the end when they reunite. Mission 4 was mostly about Zavala and Taj. Mission 5 was mostly about Cade and Crow, with a bit of Zavala at the end when he begins to really question the Traveler. Mission 5.1, the Lost Sectors, were mostly about the Traveler, with a bit of a Cade cutscene at the very end. Mission 5.2, the Strike, was mostly about Zavala. Mission 6 was mostly about Taj, Zavala, and the Witness. Mission 7 was mostly about the Witness, and Mission 8 was mostly about the Witness with a bit of Cade in the final cutscene. So in terms of missions where Cade was the main focus, we've got number 5 only, where Crow tells him about the Ahamkara wish halfway through. Meanwhile, missions where Zavala was the main focus, 4, 5.2, which is the Strike, and 6. We get 3 Zavalas for every Cade. Not only that, half of Zavala's story is stuff we covered 2 years ago. And when he finally does turn his back on the Traveler, we get 1 mission with him as a changed man before he totally reverts to his previous self. We've had Zavala in Destiny for 6 extra years since Cayde died in Forsaken, and we will continue to have him for as long as his character is still alive. But you know who we don't have anymore and haven't had for 6 years now? Cayde-6. I strongly believe that Zavala's spotlight should have been Cayde's. I asked my audience on YouTube who their favorite main character was. I could only include the main characters of Final Shape, otherwise there would have been too many options. And I didn't even think to put Glint as an option in hindsight, so this is very skewed data. But when the vast majority of players prefer a certain character, shouldn't you factor that in when choosing who to spend the most time on in a story? I'm sure Bungie has this kind of data, but they still chose to put Cayde in the B plot most of the time. Make it make sense to me, you know what I mean? But Jez, what could they possibly have explained about Cayde that would have been interesting? I'm so glad you asked, because although I still firmly believe lore doesn't count when evaluating the story of a game, there's so much effing fascinating Cayde-6 lore that will never be explored now because he's gone. So remember some of Cayde's final words 6 years ago in Forsaken?
I'm coming home, Ace.
Well, in his former life, Cayde used to be a human soldier with, and you're not gonna believe this, huge gambling debts. Then he gets a mysterious job offer from Clovis, or as I like to call him, Cluwovis. Anyway, not a good guy. The offer, it turns out, was let me turn you into an exo and I'll deal with your financial situation. Bring us the girl and wipe away the debt. Different franchise, sorry. Right before the operation, he keeps a journal to his son. Quote, "What can I say? I was just in too deep, Ace. I had to do something for your sake above all. I'd lost any hope of cashing in, and to be honest, the big payday wasn't coming. Not with the jobs I was finding." And then from another entry, "So there you have it, Ace. That's why I did what I did. I had no choice, really. Just know your dad did what he had to do if I ever wanted to see you or your mother again. You probably won't recognize me since I'll be a robot and all, but I'll find you. I promise." So Cayde traveled to Europa and became an exo for the sake of his family. Unfortunately, the procedure wipes your memory, and later he's stationed on Venus as a security guard for a woman. He falls in love with her despite never having the courage to initiate a dialogue. Her name was Maya Sundaresh. What was the name of Cayde's ghost again? Sundance? Interesting, what a coincidence. When he later comes to as a guardian, he'd continue to write journals for himself and his son, often referencing his queen and his ace, offering wisdom or advice. But with each additional mind wipe, they have to do that so exos don't go crazy, he begins to question the truth of his family's existence. Hey kid, I know I don't write you very often, but it's better than never. Reality is, ain't no telling who I'm talking to. Hell, could be me. Hi me, sorry you can't remember all you can't remember. That's just an exo's lot in life. Eventually he comes to a tragic realization. Everything I said about my queen is true. She is my shield. She is also a lie. The kid, the woman, I do not know them. They are not real, but I wish I did and I wish they were. Pretty interesting backstory. I think you'll agree. Instead of exploring any of that, they prioritized Zavala's family history, the one family we know the most about. After Cayde became an exo and was working on Europa, he meets a child called Micah, the same Micah the Queen mentioned in her "These Are the People I've Rallied" cutscene. People have speculated that Ace is Micah 10, but Cayde was already writing to Ace long before he met Micah, so I don't buy that personally. One other minor story beat they could have explored with Cayde was that he personally witnessed the collapse of humanity when we fell to darkness. Here's a journal entry written in Cayde's Treasure Island book from the Taken King Collector's Edition, released 9 years before Final Shape. "I'm out in plain sight. Sky is torn open and there's nothing and nobody left in this ruined world but me and the boiling shadow all around. Whatever it is hits me before I can level my gun. Doesn't matter. Tendrils of pain crawl over my splayed fingers, my screaming mouth as it consumes. I'm being enveloped. Everything is wrong, primordial. My systems go sideways, all but my senses. It wants me to witness this, the world, its world now. Suffocating in the black poison, I collapse. We all collapse." No mention of this out of all the things. Instead, we went with everyone loves their ghosts and Zavala's mad, just kidding. What if Bungie dropped an effing bombshell? Like Zavala's adopted son, Hakim, actually was Cayde's son. I don't know how that works timeline-wise, but it's just an example. But at least then there's some kind of development with Zavala's family story as opposed to an exact retread. And then Cayde gets to have a whole arc where he deals with the trauma of leaving his family and breaking his promise to find them again. By the way, we were lucky we even even got Cayde in the final cutscene. Bungie released an alternate ending from before the final shape delay, and in it, we see our Guardian combining the power of light and dark to just resurrect the ghost ourselves. So either Cayde would have just stayed alive in the Pale Heart, or they were going to kill him off somewhere else in the story. As much as I dislike Ghost, the ending they wrote for Cayde was excellent. It just seems silly that our Guardian could become literally as powerful as the Traveler and revive people at will. Definitely a good call to change that ending. But that makes me think, if Cayde wasn't even in that previous ending, what did he do in that campaign? Like, what was his arc? He's already barely in the campaign we got. One of the devs was probably like, wait, why is Cayde even here? Shouldn't we have him do something important? And then somebody who just got done watching Avengers Endgame was like, I've got the perfect idea. There was more to Final Shape than the campaign, obviously, but for whatever reason, I've always seen the campaign itself as the thing of importance when looking back on a game. So although there was a bunch of other content like the raid and the exotic mission, which were both excellent, the campaign carries the most weight for me personally when evaluating an experience. Final Shape was some of the best moment-to-moment storytelling we've ever had in Destiny. But when I zoom out and think about the story they told at a macro level, I'm disappointed with the directions they went. The first 4 missions out of the official 7 were us finding each member of the Vanguard. That's over half the original campaign. That is way too many. All that could have been done in 2 missions. Don't get me wrong, I liked the different emotional beats that each individual had as they reunited with Cayde, but those were the final few minutes of an hour-long mission each time. Assembling the Avengers just felt like filler content while we waited to start the actual story. And the more I analyzed Final Shape's campaign, the less it held up looking back. That was a disappointing trajectory for me. I think the best stories should get better over time. The more you analyze them, the richer they become. Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Succession, Breaking Bad, the original Star Wars trilogy. It's a bummer I can't put Final Shape in that category, but maybe you can. And I love that for you. I will say, I think Bungie did the best they could with it. Like, I don't think they could have produced anything better than what we got. And for that, I thank them. I wouldn't have spent hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars working with my editor to make this video if I didn't care about Destiny. I wanted this project to be my final love letter to the franchise. One last hurrah through the Destiny universe. Because if I'm really honest, I think I'm ready to move on. For me, it's been almost 10 years of playing and covering this game. And for the time being, I've had my fill. I'd love to focus all my time into making one highly edited green screen rant every month. Or if you've seen my non-gamer wife plays Destiny 2 video, it could be something like that as well. The problem is if I still have one foot in the Destiny door, I literally don't have enough time or energy to also make big green screen videos. And this is my 5th one of these now. They're all in a playlist. If you'd like to help me transition my whole channel to this style, I've relaunched the Patreon. It's in the description. Anyone who contributes, your name will be a part of these credits. These are all my patrons as of right now. The next green screen video will be what Elden Ring is like for my non-gamer wife. Hit the Patreon to get in the credits of that bad boy. Or for a free alternative, hit subscribe.